Good morning, everyone. It's time to begin the regular meeting of your Board of Directors. So we'll call the meeting to order. And as our first order of business, we have a guest speaker, Jeff Cook, landscaping architect, who in conjunction with the landscaping committee will bring us up to date on the entrances and the front of the clubhouse. Jeff.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
No problem.
So our process with the landscape committee and vetting the designs that are in front of you began almost a year ago. Approximately Thanksgiving, I was hired to begin looking at potential, the areas, so the real estate on either side of both entrances, as well as the clubhouse, to begin this design and essentially a rebranding or a reprogramming of Foxfire itself. We began with a very simple process, which was looking at existing signage that you have now. So in other words, both entries have signs on either side. We looked at that to begin with. That was a different concept than what is on the screen in front of you. There were hand-drawn renderings that actually examined those to begin with. So we moved with the landscape committee, then we moved toward a consolidation of signage. So a monument in the center of the medians at both Davis Boulevard and Radio Road. And what that began to accomplish for us was by pulling that signage outward toward both roads in the center, it allowed for a greater degree of visibility. It also granted a lot more importance to both monuments themselves in concert with the lighting that you see on both sides. It is we've called it, I think, prairie. Frank Lloyd Wright came to mind, but that lighting itself is, as well as the sign in the monument, it is nothing like you see currently in Naples. So we really wanted to quote Emerald, kick it up a notch and kind of make Foxfire a unique community. So the signs you'll note have potted plants on them, potted flowers, suspended, as well as in the lower left of where the hand is right now, you'll see a pot in front of the sign monument itself at the ground. We felt like that was a nice touch, as well as what the landscape committee, I haven't walked your golf course, but I did hear about the wonderful moves that have been done, heavy on annuals and color. And as you see in the renderings, that was, those golf course moves were an attempt to impart that on both entries and essentially roll out the welcome carpet to both road right-of-ways. Now, when you get to the clubhouse design, and Kathy, I'm not sure if it's the next sheet or potentially the other page. The clubhouse itself, though, currently, as you know, yes, right there, thank you.
Okay.
As you know, does not have signage at all. And so there were a couple of challenges really with the clubhouse itself. In terms of my initial drive through the community, I passed the clubhouse. I didn't know where it was. Then I saw it, had to do a U-turn, come back. But we felt like rolling the signs out to Kingsway was a wonderful way of marking the club. We have some, what I'll call placeholder verbiage in the signage. That's kind of to be determined, but the suggestions from the landscape committee now, as you'll see, was marking at the club, bag drop put on below both signs, pointing inward, as well as where Kathy just kind of circled the cursor, the bag drop sign where you have currently as a replacement. The signs themselves, all signs, incorporate a wonderful tile that both Beth and Charlie selected. It is luminescent as well as has a wave pattern. So again, with going with a distinctive design to Naples and thus to Foxfire, That would be, it would be a little bit different than the graphic you see now. That was glass tile and a. So the move going forward, though, is the wave
Okay.
Mango.
color, essentially, and then above the frieze on the clubhouse roof itself, you'll see moves into, again, that wave. Beyond that, there is a fountain below that wave, a newer fountain itself. It is pulled closer to the porte cochere, which we thought was a wonderful opportunity to introduce white noise into that space. Porte cochere is rather large, dominates the frontage. And right now, the fountain is pulled a bit forward. It is definitely exposed to wind. And so one of the challenges currently was throwing that water in the air vertically, allowed the wind to catch it and blow it into annuals and essentially kill your annuals by virtue of treating the water. So this one is different in its approach. It's a lot more approachable from the exit of the club. Perhaps guests, visitors, waiting on members prior to entering the club. It would be a nice space for them to essentially gather and pass the time. And then the other item you see here is the introduction of a flagpole into the median back on Kingsway. Other than that, I think that summarizes kind of where we were. Definitely some discussions that we had on design, and actually, excuse me, Beth just put her hand in the air, so I must have missed something.
You didn't talk about the walls going into the entrances.
Oh,
You
okay.
might explain that, you know.
Want to go back to this one?
Sure, so please. So Beth just wanted me to bring to your attention the entry walls on Davis. Right now, what you have is ornamental ironwork that's essentially hidden by a matrix of vines that are intertwined and grown. Not to sound too critical, but it looks rather unkept, or it's difficult to maintain. So one of the moves that we wanted to do was replace that with these lower walls that essentially frame the entry and bring your eye into the main gate, as well as the columns that house the gate currently. On Radio Road, it's a different approach. You don't have elements that really lend themselves to that right now. There are quasi-natural areas or even preserved, yes, thank you, on either side. So we took a hard pass on walls. Obviously, that helps with budget. So in lieu of that, we actually have the ornamental ironwork framing your entry and then coming up both sides of the entry road itself, or entry drive, and it would terminate into some columns that you actually don't see there. But essentially in the entrance where those columns are now near the gates, I think they're about 6 feet tall, might be off on that dimension. But as you come toward the roadway itself, that fence would step down in its approach. So in other words, at Radio, we would not terminate with a 6-foot fence. It may step down to 4. So hopefully that, did you have anything else that you can think of? Right, so Beth gave me the approval. I think I've hit all the hot buttons that we discussed with the committee.
Do you want to talk about the next steps too now?
Thank you, Don.
That'd be perfect.
So then with all that information being said, our next steps now, since we have what I'm inferring as the final concept, the documents that we're looking at now, our next move is to create working drawings. These are concepts, so there are not dimensions in this. Contractors will be looking for dimensions, lengths. They'll want to determine square footages, quantities for a great number of items: tile, stucco, lighting runs, etc. Pavers is another budget-heavy item. So what we want to do now is create these documents and do a budgetary exercise with a minimum of 3 contractors. Let those budgets come back. We would separate them into the 3 areas that the concept currently is separated. So we'd have a budget for the Davis Boulevard entry from the edge of Davis Boulevard into that first island as you go through the gates. For Radio Road, it essentially ends at the gates themselves now. So that's where that scope cuts off. And then the clubhouse is a little different. That one, we have both frontages of the parking lots with landscaping, what I'll call to do, as well as the walls, the signs that you see, and that scope extends all the way to, as I mentioned before, the island that houses the two current Canary Island date palms and the fountain itself. We will probably leave out the logo and any attachments to the building itself. There is a move, as I heard, to examine with an architect some potentials for redoing the clubhouse. So we'll remove that from our scope for now and go from there. So what we think this will allow the board to do is begin to prioritize. So let's say, for example, the number 1 is let's do all the signage at Davis and Radio as a priority. You may want to phase pavers, things like that. Lighting may also be another big priority. But what this will allow you to do is be fiscally aware of, within a budgetary time frame, 1, 3, 5-year time period, you can make the selections to phase certain elements for construction over a longer term. That is our next step. And then right after that, once we get those approvals for the budget, then we would move directly into permitting, which isn't, by the way, so what we're going to do is have a couple of processes running in tandem. This budget exercise is essentially going to run in tandem with our permit drawings so that we don't have a 3-4 month delay in generating another set of drawings. We'll essentially roll right from the permit or the budgetary drawings into the permit drawings for submittal to Collier County. There are going to be at least 2 permit iterations. One will be signage itself. Collier County, if you're not aware, has an incredible red tape for signs. So we may adjust what you see, just so you know that going in as well. They have these very strange points with addressing, so you may see numbers added to the signs that currently are in these drawings. That's by virtue of an addressing requirement that Collier County signage has. The other permit process that we need to go through is a right-of-way permit process. So everything, not the clubhouse would be exempt from that because the right-of-way essentially stops at Kingsway. Going into the clubhouse itself, that's private, it's considered a parking lot. On Radio and Davis Road, though, those are both public right-of-way, so we do have to go through the right-of-way department for literally everything. Signage, landscape, pavers, walls, fence, flagpole relocations, etc. And hopefully I'm clear on those processes. I know there's some overlap, but if you folks have any questions, I'm definitely here to answer those. Yes.
I've got a couple of questions. First, my apologies because I was looking at something else for a brief period of time if I missed this. Does your proposal here include any changes to the entrance gates themselves, the things that swing open to allow people in?
They do not.
Okay.
They do not. The columns themselves, we're going to take an alternate look at. Architecturally, they're called coins. It's the way that they're kind of separated now. And if you can imagine Lego blocks, for lack of a better term, that's what they look like now. They're not really in concert with more of an upgraded, clean, prairie, whatever terms we want to use to call this newer concept coming in. So we may, to go back to your question, definitely paint. We may refinish, again, those architectural elements, but the gates themselves, no.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question is, you talked about doing, I think as you described it, a budget study for
Yes.
the 2 entries and the clubhouse, and that would go in parallel with a permitting plan that you were going to put forward so that we didn't have to do this 2 times.
Correct.
Do you have any estimate on how much that stage, that next stage, the budget study and the permitting and the drawings, how much that's going to cost? Or do we have to start first with the budget study?
We're already in contract for the budget study, so we're already,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
But I assume there'll be some additional charges for getting the permits.
Oh, yes, oh, yeah, but
Approximately what would that cost us?
So it's an excellent question. So permitting, what Collier County does is they have a flat fee per permit, which I'm going to have to look. I don't know that offhand for the right-of-way permit itself. They also have, what the county does, it's a fantastic revenue, but it's based upon your construction cost. And between this group and the flagpole, typically what our firm does is deflate that construction cost so that you're not getting paid for what I'll call the full Monty moving forward. In other words, things like glass, tile, we're not going to tell Collier County that you're going in with and it's not glass tile, by the way, but this is a for instance. We wouldn't tell them that you're using a $50 per square foot material on a sign, for instance. That would elevate your opinion of probable cost. And their fee for that is, I think it's 0.75%. So those things will omit those certain, what I'll call higher echelon materials, so that on some permit cost. So rounding back, I have no idea what those permit costs are going to be currently. Budget is going to influence where we get those items permitted right now, number one, and number two, until we know really our path forward. I can't answer that final, but that's the only outstanding cost you're looking at.
And then right, like for right-of-ways, the right-of-way costs are actually different depending on the time of the year. So during the height of the season, they actually are a lot more because they feel like if you have a right-of-way permit, you're impacting more of the rest of Naples as opposed to when it's least least populated. So they've got all kinds of little.
Yeah, it's a shakedown. It drives me nuts. It really does.
They got a lot of angles.
Hey, Jeff, quick question for you. Do you know, is there a way, and I'm asking you because you might know in the landscaping business, in architecture that you're in, you know how we have that big metal electric box that's right as we come in, that eyesore at the corner? I'm seeing that they're doing wrappers on these boxes to kind of, make it a little more attractive than those ugly boxes that we have out there. Are you aware of how we could get something like that done with that electrical box?
So what we're going to do in the right-of-way permit process is one of the departments that'll look will be traffic control. They want to examine, our stop bars, our stop signs, things like that. So it's a great question, and we will have a dialogue there. And more than likely, I'm going to have a call out on my plan that alerts them to the fact that we are looking for some sort of a wrap or camouflage, whatever we're going to call that, on that signal box. The only item that I know that they won't wrap or knock down the appearance of is that 252 number that they have in there that's pretty standard. So if the light's knocked out with a power
sure,
lightning strike, you can call in and alert them that the signal's down.
Right. But we could work on that as part of it then.
Absolutely, and I'm with you. I don't think we want that stainless steel Viking refrigerator out there at your front door.
No. Hey, I would like to just give a shout out to Beth and Charlie, who have done, and Jeff, you as well, for the great work that you've done. Charlie and Beth did an enormous amount of work going around Naples, like looking for conceptual ideas as we evolve through this process. And, without their vision and the work that we've done as a committee, we wouldn't be where we are right here, right now. So we've gone through many renditions and discussions, and I want to thank everyone, Beth and Charlie specifically, and you, Jeff, for all the work that you've done on this, because it's really come out very nicely.
Any other board members have any questions for Jeff?
Now, I would like to add that it does look very attractive. And thank you for doing this, Beth and Charlie and Jeff.
When do we think we'll have the proposals?
That's the magic question of the day. I probably am looking at 45 days or so for this bid set to be produced. Again, what you're looking at right now is there are a few different programs that we use to produce these. So now it goes back to basics. I'll use survey data in AutoCAD to generate these quantities, lay out everything that essentially you see in those images. So signs, lighting, pavers, etc. After that, 45 days, and we release to bid. The problem is we're coming into the holiday season. So I can't anticipate any, delays there, number one. Number two, as I told the committee, unfortunately, we are at the absolute height of construction in Naples right now. So I don't know what their timeline is going to be to get back to us. We will encourage them or ask them to submit a 30-day turnaround on their proposals. So I'm hopeful we have 3 numbers in that 75-day total process turnaround.
Jeff, on the 3 bids that you're going to be seeking, I'll speak for myself. I don't know anything about landscape architectural contractors. My contractor is my wife, who figures out what she wants to put in front of her and back of her house. Are you going to guide us to the 3 contractors that we should bid? Because I don't think the board is qualified to be able to say contractor A, B, C, D are good or bad. We need an expert like you.
Well, what my approach is, and you're absolutely right, is to solicit bids to general contractors that then will release this to the various trades. So landscape and irrigation, electrical, signage, there's quite a few sign companies out there as well. What these general contractors typically have are wonderful relationships with inspectors. And inspectors at the end of the day are the magic in getting this thing done in an efficient time frame. They can cause all sorts of misery at the end because they don't like this and that, or they're unfamiliar with a paving subcontractor, for instance, or an electrical contractor, for instance. So that's the route we'll take, is somebody familiar with, number one, the scope of work, and number two, specifically these entries, these roadways.
That's good. So you'd be working closely with Donald and our operations team and deciding who those contractors are and be able to give us a recommendation on it. Great.
Yes, and even a gentleman, Brian.
Yes, Brian, yeah, Brian.
And even Brian that you have, I guess he's newer to staff right now, but he struck me as being extremely familiar with construction here locally, and I believe that's his background.
That's why we hired him.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah.
Good hire.
Why do you tell them that you don't think they'll start?
I have that question.
All right.
Yeah.
Beth just mentioned that I reiterate what I told the committee, I think 2 weeks ago. Last week, thank you. Time either flies or it doesn't. I don't want to be disingenuous in this process at all, but the question of the day is how quickly could we get this constructed? And what I told the committee was I thought a year is a conservative estimate. I don't want to get too aggressive and sell something that I can't. And again, I'm at the mercy of these contractors who, number one, are busy, and number two, will be shopping this around to various subcontractors or trades. So anyway, we'll find the magic marriage of budget, time frame, permitting, and construction. And again, I'm hopeful that a year from now we can have the construction underway.
Any other questions from the board? On behalf of the board, I thank you and Beth and Charlie for the creativity and imagination you've brought to this, and we look forward to the evolution of it over the next year.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Beth and Charlie were absolutely critical with their, as Sherry mentioned before, with their footwork in going around the community, vetting the designs, and truly finding something that will eventually be very distinctive to Foxfire itself.
That's what we hope for. So
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right, the next item is the member's right to speak, but apparently no members have signed up at this point. So we'll move on to the review and approval of minutes of the board meeting of August 28th. And we'll go through it page by page. And in your board book, it's page number 1. Number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Number 5. And number 6. Being no changes, is there a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
I move to accept and approve the minutes as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Hey, this is a home run. No changes this month.
Yeah, right.
Congratulations, Linda.
Been a while since that happened.
Okay, moving on. The general manager's report. Donald.
So do you want to start with the little COVID-19 update from the Medical Advisory Committee?
Yes. A couple of things from the Medical Advisory Committee, which we put together to help us help guide Foxfire through this pandemic. And several things. One is we met with Diane Becker of the Social Committee
And Galena.
and with Galena to discuss the social schedule for the fall. And it was mutually agreed that because of the pandemic, we would not have a welcome back party. Other social events we will deal with individually as time goes by to see where we are with the pandemic and to see if there are ways that we conduct some of these events in a safe fashion, whether we hold them outside or limit the number of participants, et cetera. So, but in general, large gatherings indoors are certainly out until at least the first of the year, and we'll see where things stand at that point.
Hey, Bill, are we gonna announce to the members that we're not having a welcome back party through
It's in
Foxtail?
Sherry,
It's in Foxtails this month.
Yeah. no.
Okay, thank you.
okay.
Just curious.
The committee put together a set of recommendations for people returning to Foxfire from elsewhere in the country, sort of advising them of the steps they need to take if they've had COVID-19, if they've had a significant exposure, whether they should quarantine or not, et cetera. This advisory, will be sent out to all members. Again, it's sort of a voluntary thing in the sense that it's very difficult for us to monitor where people are coming from and what the risks were, and whether they've been involved in large events just prior to coming. So we have to rely on the good faith and common sense of our members to implement this. But at least it poses a set of guidelines. This was in the board book.
Yes, we put this as an added,
Yeah.
it should be in everybody's board
So
book or
this
an
was in your
email.
board book. Since it is sort of an official document, is there a motion to accept this recommendation from the Medical Advisory Committee?
Oh, can we take another look at that real quick, please? Also, when I saw it, I thought, boy, this looks like a Fox Tales article to me.
That's what we were thinking. We'd put it in Foxtails. We'd put it on post it around, put it on the website, and also send it via email as well. So, but we thought we would do it kind of in every media form.
Okay, that sounds good. Stella's gone, so getting it in this month might be difficult just because of issues. But
Yes, and I did explain that to the committee as well the other day, that if we couldn't get it in for October, we most likely would get it in for November.
But this could appear on 198, and it could appear online and foxfirecc.com, correct?
Yes.
Today.
Yeah, that's good.
Is there
So before we motion, one quick question. I've had a couple of members approach me about, and this is more towards the advisory committee and what the recommendation is going to be with members returning in the quarantining period. What are we recommending to do for people to be out on the golf course, using the facilities, coming back, having traveled from wherever they're coming from back down to here? Like, that's one thing that I don't see covered in this September write-up, and I'm wondering what our policy or our recommendation is going to be for those members that are returning. There's members here that have been here all summer that are concerned about their physical safety with members coming back and if they don't quarantine. So I'm just wondering if you talked about that or if there is a direction for what we're going to do about that.
Well, those are the bullet points that detail that. In the first one, if you've tested positive for COVID-19 within 14 days of arrival, you're encouraged to notify the club manager, perform contact tracing, and refrain from using club facilities for 14 days, and a negative repeat test. And each one of these sort of details a particular situation.
Yeah, I think the question, Bill, is more around, I understand if you've tested positive, but if someone's traveling and they've been exposed to somebody that is asymptomatic, they aren't even going to know that they've got COVID, and they're coming in and they're traveling from wherever, and they aren't going to self-quarantine when they get here. And the question is, what is the policy, or what are we doing as a club? And if we're following state guidelines and there is no quarantining requirement, then that's what we tell the members. But it's been raised as a concern by members about because we're going to have this kind of mass influx, and do members, how are we going to manage that? And if it's just follow these guidelines, then that's what we tell them. But I think it's a valid point about people coming and they've traveled, and are they going to quarantine or not? And what are we going to do about their golf privileges or anything else that's around and about the club?
It says if you've been exposed to COVID-19 during your travel, you should quarantine for 14 days and consider getting tested. If you've participated in high-risk activities within 14 days of arrival, such as crowds or large social gatherings, you should quarantine for 14 days. We're not a police agency. We have to rely on members taking these recommendations and acting on them. I don't know, any particular person returning to Foxfire. We don't know whether they fall into one of these categories or not. Only the individual can make that determination. And again, have to rely on their common sense and their sense of community to do the right thing.
Bill, I'm an advocate of following these guidelines that the medical advisory group has stated. You are relying on common sense, and there's going to be discussions all across the United States from the political sides of parties, from different states doing different things. Some people were going to say everybody in this country should wear a mask. That's seems like insanity because we'd never be able to enforce those types of things. I think that you've laid out good, clear guidelines, not rules, but guidelines to ask members to use their common sense. Let these people come back to Florida, and if they're have not been exposed to COVID-19, get out on the golf course and enjoy it with the rest of us who have stayed here throughout the course of the summer. This is a real solid, sound policy that the Medical Advisory Committee has put together.
And Roger, I just want to be clear, I'm not questioning the policy. I actually think this is a great write-up. I just am sharing feedback and concern from members here that have expressed, what are we doing about quarantining people that come in? And I'm just raising a hand to say, if this is what we're going to follow, then this is what we tell the members. I just want to be clear about, because it's been raised.
I applaud that.
I'm not disputing the work that the advisory committee's done. I think it's great. I just think some of the points are about, if you've tested positive for COVID, is not necessarily somebody that's traveled. And I see the part about if you've been exposed to COVID, but you don't know that you've been exposed. So there's some kind of fine lines in this, but I'm not here to dispute it. I just am passing on feedback.
Bill, I'd like to move that we accept the message from the Medical Advisory Committee dated September 2020, including its recommendation.
So then a motion to accept, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
I'd just like to add, I understand Sherry and others' concerns that there is some risk with a large influx of people from all over the country coming to Foxfire, but I think these are pretty good these are good guidelines. They're the best we can do, and I'll vote for this.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. The only other thing is that a question came up about whether we should have the Bloodmobile in a week or 10 days, whenever it's scheduled. And we felt that the people operating the Bloodmobile are taking the appropriate precautions in terms of distancing and masks, et cetera. So, we recommended that we go ahead with the Bloodmobile, especially in light of the critical shortage of blood products at the present time. I think that's it for the COVID-19 update.
Okay.
Projects, Donald?
All right, so I'm going to continue with the golf and social plan, just to give you all a little bit more as to what we're doing from the standpoint of operations, and working in tandem with the Medical Advisory Committee. Galena and Leo, Steve and Gary have all worked together to review the calendars for the schedules for the next 3 months. And as Dr. Cornetta has mentioned, we're going to make a number of alterations and recommendations for different events that we might be able to have and do them obviously in a safe manner. We've already drawn up a number of guidelines with the number of people that can, a number of members who could be in the clubhouse, in the dining room, the grill room, etc. The plan is that for the bocce social area, that during this fall, as we get busier, that will be one of our outlets for dining and outdoor dining again, like it was this spring. So we will have a modified golf and social calendar that takes all of the restrictions and mandates it takes all the mandates and all of the restrictions that are in place today. And the plan going forward will be that we're planning all of these things 3 months out, but we'll make decisions on the various programs 1 month out. One of the items that we did discuss and we all agree on is that the men's member guest and the ladies member guest will both be canceled this year. There's just too much risk involved there. So we will be canceling those events. However, we're going to come up with some other type of member events that hold in those place and the place of those events and program a little bit differently. So the staff's working hard on that, and we will publish all the details and what we're looking at for October, November, and December, and how we're projecting that out by the end of this month. The next part is on our pool renovation. The pool renovation is still underway. As I'd mentioned in the last month, we have been told that the fence will be arriving sometime right around September 24th, and then that will be installed. A lot of the contractors, including the fence company, are having a number of delays with products. And so while the restroom renovation at the pool is going along very well, the doors and windows are actually on back order. So the plan right now is that those doors and windows will be delivered and installed between the 5th and the 15th of October. But pretty much work is going on every single day. And as I said, there's a couple of issues with regard to materials, and we're hearing that from pretty much everybody that we talk to. Incidentally, and this is just a point that some of you may want to know, and that is, I had a conversation with one of our members just the other day, and they were informed that there's a shortage of air conditioners, and that's going to be an issue going forward. So it's not every air conditioner, but there's a number of compressors that there's shortages on. So that may be something that some of our members will have to deal with coming into the fall. The golf course project, at this point in time, everything is growing in. John and his crew are wrapping up the bunker work, as we had mentioned last month. There were a couple of other items that they were asked to do, and they've been doing those with regard to the driving range updates. The drain on 9 red and 9 blue, at this point in time, where that stands is the box that has to be installed needs some special equipment, and the company that would come and actually install that box wouldn't be able to do it during the rainy season because the water levels are so high at this point in time, and plus the fact that they're so far out on their work. So this actually may work out to be best, because we could actually do the box in December, get it on the schedule when we do our golf course closures, similar to what we did with the bridge construction on 9 red last year. So that's a consideration at this point in time, to get the box installed basically in December, when the golf courses would be closed, or the golf course would be closed, the particular 9. And then once that is installed, that's when we would be able to install the bulkhead. But of course, with the fact, and as I mentioned last month, we really don't want to install a bulkhead in the middle of the season when we have 200 to 300 golfers playing every day. So depending on how the timing works out, the best install in the bulkhead may end up being next spring. So as of right now, the drain box more than likely would be installed in December, and the bulkhead trailing that. I have asked another contractor to come in and look at the job to see if there's any way that they could expedite that. And then, of course, as you all know, we've got 9 inches of rain last week, which isn't helping the situation. And the fact that part of this work does require a dewatering exercise, we have that much more water to get out of the lake. So in any case, the cost, as I discussed last month, the cost for that box and the drain pipe which I hadn't gotten a proposal of the estimate back for at that time, is $32,000. So that is the proposal. The original work that we discussed, where we were just going to extend the pipe or put a new pipe in, was about $10,000. But we're looking at a price tag of about $32,000. But of course, this is work that absolutely has to be done because it's a detriment to the golf course. In the meantime, what we can do and what we should do is do a temporary repair around the actual drain pipe that we have, where we'll actually take and remove a lot of the fill and stone that's around the drain pipe, pack it in, and then rip wrap around the drain pipe so we can stop the erosion and get that area looking really good for the next several months. So again, this has been kind of a moving target because of the installation of this box. However, I think the best path forward is going to be to try to get the install done when we close the golf course, the red golf course or blue golf course in December, and then do the bulkhead at the end of next season when, you know, the golf courses aren't nearly as populated, or potentially when the golf course is closed down. This also works best from a standpoint of permitting, because with the site development plan, we can save on permitting costs by adding the bulkhead to the site development plan, and it'll help us break down a few other barriers with the county. So as I said, there are a number of different options, but the key is that the drain has to be fixed first. And at this point in time, the soonest that I can see that drain being installed permanently is the first part, middle part of December. So in the meantime, we'd like to go ahead and just make the temporary repair. And that temporary repair will look like a permanent repair, although it won't be the bulkhead and the C box.
How much does the riprap cost?
Well, when we do that repair, it'll cost about $2,000.
Okay. Can we use that stuff somewhere else later once we remove it?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Can we use that riprap elsewhere once we remove it?
Absolutely. We're great at using things.
Yes, you are. Now, to install the drain, you just need to close red 9, right? Or do you have to close blue 9 also?
Well, to install the drain, they estimate it to be a 4 to 5 day job. So we'll already have one. Because we close each course for 5 or 6 days at a time, more than likely what we would do is, well, we would definitely have one of those 2 courses closed, obviously. So we're only dealing with one hole that would potentially have to be a par 3 or a shortened hole just for that 5 day period.
So it would affect both of the holes, blue and red 9.
Yeah. Not as much as a bulkhead installation, because a bulkhead installation is a 3-week job.
All the way.
Yeah, it's a 3-week job. And as I said, yes.
You're going to close and put a temporary green up on one of those courses in December 15th to December 31st, that type of thing? Is that very few golfers?
Yes, okay. And based on their estimate, you know, it'd probably be 5 or 6 days. And as I said, I have another company coming in to look at that as well. The company that we've used all this time, Universal, has been fantastic, and their pricing has been outstanding for all the jobs. And I wanted to bring somebody else in just to see if they could get it on the schedule quicker, and if what kind of pricing difference it would be as well. So, but I'm pretty confident that whoever we bring in is probably not going to have a better cost estimate, but we'll see.
Okay, got to be done.
That particular work. Okay. Now, with regard to I just want to quick jump back to go back, stay on the golf course for a minute. One of the things that has been popping up, and I know we've had conversations about this, and it's easy for any one of us to have these items escape our mind, and that is that during the summer, from basically in August and September, we generally hire day laborers to come out and work on the golf course and do vine removal, vines in the palmettos, trimming of the exterior walls, the calusha, all those things. With COVID and not wanting to bring adding any additional risk, we're not doing that this year. So between not having the day laborers in for a few weeks, we normally bring five day laborers in for 4 or 5 weeks at a time this time of the year. We're going to end up doing that ourselves, but that is delaying a lot of our projects, that are annual or biannual type events. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that when it comes to the vines, when it comes to some of these other areas, we're doing that internally, and doing that internally this year is putting us behind because we've been doing a golf course project internally at the same time. So there's a lot of moving parts right now, and I just wanted to make sure everybody's aware. It's not that the maintenance staff has forgotten about it or aren't aware of it. It's just the fact that we normally have that assistance, and that's normally a planned assistance, but we don't really want to bring others in right now that we don't have to because of the COVID and obviously the cost factor. However, and then also with the sidewalks and the swales, we have the sidewalks and swales power washed from an outside contractor in September and October. And that's what we do annually. And then we do it internally, throughout the year. Now, this year, the gentleman who does all of our power washing, the outside firm, he wanted to come in August to do that work. And I didn't have him do it at that time because we had so much construction still going on with the pool and with the golf course with all the sand all over the place. So I didn't want to have him come in and do all that work and then still have to come back and clean swales, 2 or 3 weeks later. So in any case, that work is scheduled for the week of October 5th. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. The last thing that I wanted to touch on was that if you don't know, and I've written an announcement for this month's Foxtails, and that is that we have promoted Angel to dining room manager. So Angel will be Alina's right hand man, and we're all thrilled for Angel. We're thrilled for Foxfire. Angel's been a great employee. He's been here for about 8 years now, and I know all of you know him and enjoy him. He's well respected by the staff. He works really hard, and we feel like this is a great opportunity for Angel and a great move forward for Foxfire. So I just wanted to share that with all of you.
Donald, for members that haven't had a chance to come back yet, Angel is extremely excited about the opportunity that's been presented to him. He's a quality young man and a great choice as assistant.
He is. He's terrific. I'm very happy for him.
Yeah, it's exciting. Exciting stuff. Absolutely. Beyond that, does anybody have any questions for me?
If not, we'll move on to the controller's report.
This will be really easy because the controller's on vacation. So, but everybody does have their financials, and as you could see, we're really still holding strong there through August. And the only thing that in addition to what we would generally do is that I had mentioned in the past that we wanted to look at getting dividers for our club-owned golf carts. The dividers so we had 2 different manufacturers accessories installed so we could test them out and see how they worked. And the one that the Pro Shop recommended is the one that is provided by Gator Sports, or Gator Golf Cars. They changed their name. The key here is that for us to operate and be able to have the number of golf rounds that we would normally have in the months from November through April, there's virtually no way that we can do that with single rider carts all the time. And so these dividers are approved so that you can put them in. They can be removed as well, but you can put them in, and you can allow two people who are not in the same household to ride together. So this expense is an expense that I would qualify as necessary, because ultimately we want, when our members get back, they're going to want to be able to play the golf course, and we want to be able to provide the access to the golf course. So as I said, I mentioned this in last month's board meeting, and I just wanted to bring it to the board because it is a $7,300 expense.
Donald, can I just ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
If my wife and I show up and want to play golf without a divider in it, is it going to be a pain in the neck for the golf staff to remove that divider?
No, they're pretty
Easily removed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And what we would do is, we have to get enough so we have them for every cart.
Right.
But what we would do is we wouldn't set up every cart with the dividers. We would set up half and half. So then if they had to add, so we'd go half and half to start with. We have to have enough for all the golf carts.
Okay, thank you.
Now, if I've got a private cart without a divider, are we going to continue to allow single use for private carts?
I think that's the only way forward right now. I think that's the only reasonable way forward right now. And to be very honest with you, we might be in a position where providing some dividers for private carts when it's in the height of season, that may be something we have to do just based on play. So
You mean to rent or use or buy, or how?
that if we purchased them, and that we'd have additional that we could install in a member's cart. For example, if all of our carts have to have the dividers in for a particular time, and then the only way we can get the last four groups out on the course for their tee times is to put dividers in personal carts, we'd want to have a few extras on hand. I don't think we have to really jump to that at this point in time. I think that having 100 of them is sufficient, and we're actually analyzing the rounds of golf played, because we do keep the different track of how many rounds are played, personal card owners, et cetera, et cetera. And in this case, we may be in a position where we can buy 50 now, and then as we get busier, buy another 50. I just don't want to, if there's a cost savings to buying them all at one time, we'd rather obviously get the bulk cost. But ultimately, I just, again, with not knowing where COVID's going to go, and knowing that in January, we're anticipating, 400 round golf days, and there's going to be some very large golf days in November as well. We definitely want to have them on hand by the end of October.
Would you be able to make those dividers available? Could single private cart owners buy one through the club if they wanted one?
We absolutely could, and that's going to be that's not an issue at all. We just have to. It may not be this specific divider, because this one is designed for the club cars with the visage cutout. So, but yes, we can certainly get dividers for personal card owners who want to just purchase one right from the get-go. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Hey, Donald, question for you. When we kind of entered into this whole COVID period was in March, and we seemed to be okay with servicing our members that were playing golf and having enough carts to service everybody where they were all in individual carts. Are you saying, do you know that the golf round play is higher, like in February, where we would tip over? Because it seemed like we were okay with everyone playing in individual carts when this all started in March, before everybody started to head home. So I'm just wondering, do we know that there's a higher propensity in February or something that causes us to have to do this?
Yes. So yes, that's a great question. So what the situation is that in March, we modified the tee times into tee time format and spread the tee times out dramatically. So we couldn't accommodate anywhere near the number of golfers that would normally play. Plus the fact that pretty much all of our tenants and all of our our members who live outside of the country pretty much left at that time. So that's really the main thing, is that if we're gonna try to play the 400 rounds a day, we have to tighten up the tee time window again and have people ride together. Otherwise, we're gonna end up having longer wait lists, which members aren't going to appreciate, or they're gonna get late tee times, the whole thing.
Barry, in January and February, we have 9,000 rounds a month. And when you look at a 28-day schedule in February, 9,000 rounds is huge. In March, we dropped down to about 8,200. That's this past year. And then it drops off from there.
Yeah, I just was curious because we had managed through it in March, and I just was like, is there something different? And he explained it. Thank you.
Just a little insight. The reports I get is we are not going to have the same number of people coming down full season. Their stays will be shorter. Canada is still under the question as to whether they're going to even be able to come down at all. I don't know if you're going to be achieving that 9,000 rounds. You may not be, is my point. So do they have these on stock, or can you just get a few of them and see which way we're going with this? Because we don't know how long this COVID thing is going to happen, or if that indeed is the situation with people coming in is going to be, diminished a bit.
Yes.
Rather than get all of them at one time, is my point.
Right, and then like I said, I would definitely talk to them about rolling them in if we can get the same price on them and roll them in, phase them in, so that I guess the first thing is obviously we don't want to be last in line. We don't
I understand.
That. So every club around here that's kind of the circulating email that we're having
Sure.
with every other golf course. The other thing that's very interesting is that rounds of golf around the country are going through the roof. So more and more people are actually playing golf. And even with the downturn that occurred in 2019, in March and April, because of the closures all over the country, they're still projecting that rounds of golf will be year over year will be much higher for 2020, just because so many more people are coming to golf. So I will definitely approach this that if we can buy them, if they're supplied, so that it's not going to be an issue and put us behind the 8 ball, and we can buy them in a fashion where as play increases, we can certainly implement it that way.
Okay.
Now, even in the most current month of August, our number of rounds of golf was up 26% on a year-over-year basis. Now, we only had 2,300 rounds, but the percentage of golfers, as you're saying, Donald, around the country are saying, I want to get outside and play. You just have to read the journals and read the publications. More and more people are getting to golf courses.
What's happening here?
I'll forward all of you I'll put on the website an article I got yesterday from the National Golf Foundation, and they're saying that COVID could actually, it might end up that COVID will drive 500,000 new kids to golf, which is incredible. It's a big number.
Mr. President, I move that we accept and authorize Mr. Shea to enter into the quotation for the Nifty Shield cart dividers as presented to us in the board book, and only with the understanding that I would hold Donald, you use your best judgment on whether we should get these all at once, depending on price and availability, or whether we can phase this in. So with that caveat, I so move.
Okay, there's a motion on the table to authorize moving forward on purchasing these dividers. Is there a second?
Didn't we already do that? Didn't we already do that?
Discussion.
No, we haven't voted on it.
Okay, I thought we did at the last meeting. Okay, yeah. I second if we haven't already.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Not all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any?
Aye.
Okay. Donald?
Okay, so on the PPP update, we are actually still just waiting for new guidance. Pam is tracking all of the information. We are meeting on a weekly basis with some hiatuses due to the fact that we're taking vacation time. But as of right now, everything is tracked, and we're really just waiting for guidance from Lake Michigan Credit Union and obviously the SBA. I don't know, Roger, if you want to make any comments on that.
I've checked with 3 other financial institutions, or friends who are doing business with 3 other financial institutions. Everyone is operating the exact same way as Lake Michigan Credit Union. They haven't opened up their websites for the forgiveness stage at this particular point in time. That's those other financial institutions were Wells Fargo, BMO, and Bank of America. So Lake Michigan's doing the exact same thing. We have to be patient. I think that Pam has been very good at telling us we may not have the final grant stage until after the first of the year, which is fine. This is not costing us anything at this particular stage. We all want to get to the grant stage, and the ad hoc committee that Dr. Cornetta brought together is trying to stay on top of it on a weekly basis.
That's right.
Good. Next, under new business, we have the club benchmarking, club governance survey. The club benchmarking has developed a comprehensive survey of all aspects of club governance, not just board, but various operational issues, employee manuals, etc. And we feel that this would be a useful thing for us to participate in and be able to compare our performance to other clubs. Any discussion of this? Any objections to our doing it?
Is there a cost?
Bill, I saw this, I received it because I think treasurers received it from club governance or club benchmarking. There's no cost to us to participate in it. We're doing work with club benchmarking. They've given us some really solid information on an ongoing basis. And we can do a comparative of how our board and how our key committee chairs believe that, I'm sorry, I apologize. I got a phone call there and didn't turn it off. Have our committee chairs and have the board take the survey itself. I scanned through the survey. It'll probably take you about 12 to 15 minutes to complete it. It would go into the pool of information that club benchmarking has with over 2,200 courses around the country. And then we've got a comparison of how we feel that Foxfire is performing in making certain that we're tied in with practices of governance that are they're taking place all across the country. No cost to us, and it's something that we just have to invest our individual time of 12 to 15 minutes to complete the survey.
Donald, a survey that multiple people would answer, or would we have one survey response from Foxfire?
Club benchmarking gives us the opportunity. Club benchmarking gives us the opportunity to let as many people take the survey as may choose to, and Bill, you may answer the governance questions slightly differently than any other board member or any other committee chair. But we would have a collective group of information that Club Benchmarking can feed back to us.
Roger, I just want to update you on, so I got some guidance this morning from them, actually.
Okay.
And what they had recommended in the guidance that I got this morning was that the general manager and the board members fill out the survey. That
So they don't want chair people.
That was the guidance I had got this morning.
Okay.
Just so you know, I just didn't, but I'll look back at it, but it was at 4:00 in the morning when I was reading it, so.
Well, at least all 7 board members would have a chance to fill it out and complete it.
Would the individual board members fill it out, or would the board members come together and collectively fill it out?
Individually.
Individually.
Yeah, so basically that I would send you all the link and you would click on the link and fill it out individually.
Okay. Is there any further discussion of that? Anyone who doesn't want to participate in this? So be it. Okay, the next is old business. The proposed master plan survey. The Communications Committee has worked on this, and the survey is a one-question survey with a couple of demographic questions. The survey question is, should one vote be conducted to approve the combined amenity and golf course components of the master plan? And it would be a yes or no answer.
Actually, Bill, could you repeat that, please?
Read that again, please. Yeah.
Should one vote be conducted to approve the combined amenity and golf course components of the master plan? And as I say, it would be a yes or no answer. And our next steps would be determined by the response to that question.
My concern is that we have not determined exactly what the components are of amenities and golf course. I believe that there is a segment of our population of members who would be in favor of a bare bones regrassing and irrigation golf course plan. However, at the last meeting, we had reintroduced the practice area and reconfiguration of Blue 1 and 9. I think it needs to be clarified for the members if they want these separate or together, what exactly, or at least a little more specifically, what they are.
Well, we have the presentation. The way this would be laid out is that a notice would be sent out with some bullet points outlining the key points that were made at the presentation on Tuesday. And there would be a link to the actual presentation that's on the webpage and a link to this survey. And
so my question is still out there. Is the golf course plan, does it include the practice area or does it not include the practice area? I really don't know.
Yeah, the last thing that I remember when we were talking going back several months is that it was going to be a choice between, would you combine 1B, the 1B factor of regrassing and irrigation, and the amenities. It identified the specific golf course work rather than just leaving it general as this seems to do.
Well, let's discuss the 1B issue, the irrigation and regrassing. If we look back at the history of this, last fall, the golf committee asked and the board approved doing a survey of members about what they wanted done with the golf course. And on November 14th, Joe Collins informed the board that the Green Committee had carefully evaluated this survey, and there were several clear conclusions after the surveys had been tallied. 90% of the survey respondents want to do either irrigation and regrassing or the entire renovation. 63% of members wanted to do 27 holes. 51% wish for the golf course to be enhanced in addition to irrigation and regrassing. The majority wished for the entire improvement package, and that of those respondents who indicated they didn't want any of the options, 75% of them wanted to enhance the golf course along the with the Strategic Planning Committee initiatives. So that was their assessment of the survey. The majority, 51%, wanted to do the enhanced package.
Hey, Bill, can I just
Let me
jump in?
finish, John. I've got the floor. Based on that, the board, the Green Committee asked the board to authorize a vote on an assessment for the golf course master plan, which included a new irrigation and regrassing of all 27 holes, turf reduction, new par 3 tees, a redesign of the course to include a short game facility, redesign of 1 blue, 9 red, redesign of 3 red and 8 silver, adding bunkers, repairing bunkers with steep slopes to soften contours, improve the slopes of some greens, and to shore up the lake banks. That was submitted to a member vote. A slight majority of those who actually voted approved that, but it was defeated because of the 200 people who did not vote. There were 731 people voted, 200 didn't vote. We can argue over the motives of people who didn't vote, but the issue was decided by the non-voters. A majority of the voters wanted to move ahead. Following that, in January, Joe Collins and the Green Committee asked that we have a vote on the irrigation and regrassing only. This has been tossed around at great length since then. Do members want irrigation and regrassing, or do they want the more comprehensive changes? In May, Mr. Collins approached the board and asked if we would agree to move ahead with some projects this summer, which included erosion control of the banks, recontouring bunkers, and installation of par 3 tee boxes, relocation of the Red 3 cart path, and testing out some turf reduction. We told him at that time that he had to go through the process of vetting this through the strategic planning and finance and administration, and it went through all that. And in June, the board was asked to approve these projects to the tune of some $170,000, which the board unanimously approved. Many of these components were in fact part of the enhanced golf course project. So the board unanimously approved the enhancements, and I haven't heard a single complaint from a member about any of these enhancements. that have been undertaken this summer. So what do the members want? I think,
Well, that's what we need to find out. And
Why
if
don't
we,
we ask
and if we
them?
propose this if we're saying that the golf course plan includes the practice area, we do not allow members to have the option of saying that they want the bare bones regrassing and irrigation. We've got to segregate that out and find out what the members want. And we can't propose
I
to them
agree.
without giving them that option.
there's no longer a bare bones.
Sure,
Why
why
not?
isn't it?
Why isn't there?
Well, we've already undertaken a number of these enhancements that.
Well,
that
let's just call it regrassing and irrigation.
Not fun.
Right.
And
I
members.
think Bill, I think the issue that you've got is there are members that are opposed to the practice area and the change up of the holes, and you've got to get to the bottom line of what the members want. And by getting to that, why couldn't we put a question out that says, are you in favor of irrigation and regrassing only, or pick one or the other? It's irrigation and regrassing only, or the practice area and the change up of the holes, in addition to irrigation and regrassing. You're going to get your answer of exactly where the membership lies and what they want as part of this survey.
I agree. We can't make the mistake again that we did with 2B. We have to allow the members a chance to tell us what they want to vote on. And if we say that there is no bare bones option, why not? There is a bare bones options if we decide to do that.
Well, again,
Also, I have a concern.
For 6 months, that the members did not want these enhancements. All we wanted was the irrigation and regrassing, and yet the board approved this whole package of enhancements that the members didn't want, and the members haven't raised any issue whatsoever.
That has
think
no
there's a
bearing
difference
on
in the
this
enhancement.
issue.
I think there's a difference in the enhancement interpretation, Bill, because what we did with the lake bank erosion, the par 3 tee box, those things are not, there's a big difference in changing the golf holes and adding this practice area versus the things that were done this summer, some of which were kind of what I would consider necessary maintenance items that needed to be done. Some of the contouring of the greens that or the bunkers that makes it a little easier in play, those are things that the members would have voted for anyways. I think you've got kind of you're at a crossroad with the practice area and the change up of the holes versus going with irrigation and regrassing, and we need to know what the members want. If they want the irrigation and regrassing only, then we need to be clear that that's what they want. And
Yeah,
then
I agree
support
with
it.
that. Yeah. If that's what they want, that's what we'll let them vote on. I personally like the practice area and the reconfiguration, but I know that there are members who don't, and we have to give them that option.
I would have to come down on the side with Sherry and Tappy on this. I think you can write, these surveys can be done very efficiently. You can write basically two additional questions within the survey. One would be, do you prefer to fix the course with an updated irrigation and regrassing of Foxfire's 27 holes, which has a cost of approximately $2.1 million? Yes or no? The second question is, do you prefer to fix the course with an updated irrigation and regrassing of Foxfire's holes and develop a new expanded practice area on the blue course grounds, shortening holes number 1 to a par 4 and lengthening hole number 9 to a par 5, which has a cost of approximately $2.8 million? Yes or no? We've got 931 members in this club, and they're bright, common sense people, and they can make a vote, not a vote, but they can give their opinion. They know what's in their mind and what's in their heart. And they know what's in their bank book, and they want to be able to express, I want to spend $2.1 million, or happy to spend $2.8 million. Give them the chance to say it.
Well,
And we also have to offer the question, would you like to vote for the golf course and the amenities in one vote? And I think we also have to ask the question, do you have no preference? There may be a segment of people who have no preference on how these votes are presented to them, who would vote yes on everything, no matter how they came down the line. So there may be a no preference option, which we could interpret as we wish.
but the more.
But I agree. We
The more
can't,
caveats you put on the questions, the less clear the answer is going to be. You start throwing numbers into these questions. If somebody answers no, is it no because they object to the cost or they object to the project?
right.
So, you know, one of the purposes of the meeting that we had the other day was to give members the opportunity to fully understand their options, okay? And that's available to them at their leisure. They can look at the pictures, they can listen to the discussion, and make a decision as to whether they want to vote these things separately or together. And
Well, if we're going to give them options, we can't limit their options by saying that the golf course vote includes the practice area. If we're going to give them options, we have to give them all the options.
You're right. If you start slicing and dicing options and put them all out there, we're not going to, some people may say, I want this, some people may say, I want this, and we're not going to come up with any sensible results at all.
It's not a vote. It's not a vote. It's a survey.
Let me finish. Do you want this? Do you want that? And nobody knows exactly who's voting for what and what. I think we're wasting time by doing surveys like this. I think they're going to produce results that are going to be so divided that we're not going to be able to put together what a common path is. I think the essence of leadership is to recommend something and let them vote on it. If they don't want what is proposed by the strategic planning committee, let them vote it down. And then we'll move on to plan B, whatever that may be. But we're not going to get any sensible results by slicing and dicing this and letting people vote on these things a la carte.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying a la carte.
Well, I think we're wasting time, and I think I'm all in favor of taking a vote on this. Why do we have to take a survey? Are you going to vote yes or no? Just let them vote. That's
because votes are time-consuming and expensive. And that was the purpose of the survey, was to try to avoid the expense of throwing votes out there and having them fail. So we could at least get some guidance from a survey before we go the vote route. And as you know, votes are very divisive also. So the idea was to have a survey, give us some direction, and that way we can put the expensive, time-consuming vote out in a way that we think that the members wanted.
And what do you do if only a third of the members respond to the survey? How do you interpret that?
You extrapolate.
You do. And you let one third of people decide how the board's gonna vote?
Jim, I think that we would probably, our experiences in the past on surveys, we've had well over 500 votes, not votes, but 500 people complete the survey. When you get a survey of an enclosed group of people who have common background, we're all 931 members of one community. You will be able to, if you had 500 people take that survey, you would be able to say with 95% accuracy that that's the way this community wants to go. Statistically, that's the way it will work out. Let the members take an expanded survey. It doesn't waste time. It prepares them. It prepares us as a board to fashion a vote that has to take place in the month of October so we can present it to that voting position for membership in November.
Well, Roger, the survey that was taken last fall, 51% said they wanted the enhanced irrigation and regrassing and the enhanced components, okay? And 51% of those who voted clearly were the people who completed the survey, because the same number voted that they wanted the enhanced golf course. But the X factor here is this non-voter issue.
But why are we forcing a direction here, Bill? I'm gonna challenge you in this respect, that our members are gonna vote and they're going to decide. And if we force a direction without getting the clarity that they want irrigation and regrassing versus the practice area and the change up of the holes, then you're putting us down the path of voting again and seeing this potentially fail again. And if we don't get clarity on this and what the members truly want, we're going to end up back in the same boat we've been in.
Well, the Green Committee, obviously in the fall, felt that the expanded enhanced project was the preferable one. And many of us feel that...
And since then, they come back and they want to go out with irrigation and regrassing.
I have the floor. Many of us feel that this is the direction that serves the best interests of Foxfire in the long run. So, I feel that part of our responsibility as a board is to exercise some leadership and try and guide the membership towards what we feel is in the best interest of the club. And we're the ones who are the most knowledgeable. We have put in the legwork. We have, done the due diligence. And, I think we do a disservice to the members by taking the minimalist route here. It's going to not serve the long-term interests of Foxfire. And the commitment we made was to ask one question on this survey. You want to vote these things together or separately? That's the question we want answered. And that's the question that's on the survey.
Well, I will have to vote against that. I'm sorry. I think we have to offer more options, especially since we have enhanced the golf course. Okay.
I agree.
And I agree as well.
Okay, well, I'll entertain a motion to submit this question to the members to resolve the issue of whether they wish to vote the amenity and golf course components separately or together.
Well, I will move that we submit that question.
Is there a second? There being no second, I guess we don't do a survey.
No,
Bill,
I
Bill,
will
I
make a
think that we should
I
do
make a
a
motion that we submit a survey that has more than one question that allows for the option of the enhanced golf course or the regrassing and irrigation alone.
Only.
Correct.
And I second that motion.
Who's going to draw it up?
Well, I mean, 6 months ago, we had that survey. And 51% of the members said they wanted the enhanced program.
Not
No,
with
the
that
question is,
question.
do you want, the question on this survey, what we're trying to determine on this survey is, do you want to vote them together or separately? My problem is that we have added into the golf course issue the practice area and the
second that.
reconfiguration of the holes. We have to separate that out because I believe, I am not
Now
one
you
of them,
threw
but
it-
I believe there's a segment of the community that wants the simple regrassing and irrigation, and we have to allow for that option.
But 6 months ago, we asked
That
that.
was 6 months ago.
It
6
doesn't
months ago,
matter.
I don't remember that.
Well, I mean, here it is, it was sent to all the board members from Joe Collins.
But didn't 6 months ago include other amenities?
And there are several clear conclusions after the surveys have been tallied. 51% wish for the golf course to be enhanced in addition to regrassing and irrigation. So,
Was that Joe Collins' survey?
But
That was-
since then, Dr. Cornetta, Joe has come back to say we should focus on irrigation and regrassing only, and the committee has endorsed that as well. So
Unanimous.
what was done 6 months ago and where we are now is different than where we were 6 months ago or even a year ago. So why can't we put this question into, and Taffy's motion with, and I've seconded, we can have more discussion, but I think we've got to put it to a vote of the board.
I don't have a problem with that, but I'm just saying, we have a survey within the last 6 months that says the majority of members who answered the survey want to go in this direction. If you ask the same question again, you're likely to get the same answer. And, we've been told for 6 months that the members only want irrigation and regrassing. And yet, when we brought up this whole enhancement issue in June, the board unanimously approved going ahead with many of the enhancements that we were previously told the members didn't want. And the members have not objected in the slightest.
Well, and Dr. Cornetta, the members they rejected the 2B proposal. They voted it down. It
They
did not
did,
pass.
yeah.
So we're coming back around and asking them for the same thing. I'm sorry, I really believe we need to put this into the survey questions and move forward.
Okay, so do I understand correctly that Kathy Phillips' motion is to send out a survey question? Do you want just regrass?
Irrigation.
Let me finish. Do you want-
Maybe we can amend that.
Wait,
If you don't mind, let me just
Jim
finish
has
what I'm
the
trying to
floor,
say here,
please.
please. As I understand the motion is we send out a survey question which says, do you want just regrassing and irrigation, or do you want regrassing and irrigation with a short course and a few other additions to the golf course? It's that two-part question that you want to survey people on. That was your motion,
Yes,
I understand.
yes, sort of, but more than that, I still want to get to, the main question is, do we want to have this vote with the amenities combined with the golf course? That's the main question. And then the golf course would be two parts. Do you want it bare bones regrassing and irrigation, or do you want enhanced
All right.
golf
the
course?
motion
Now,
said-
I don't know exactly how to phrase that, and I apologize because it's not coming to me off the
What I
top of my head.
understand now,
That's what I want to get at.
what I understand now your motion to be is the question that Bill Cornetta raised earlier will be on the survey. And also, if you do not want to vote these together, do you want just golf course, grassing and irrigation, or do you want the enhanced package?
Yeah, something along those lines that we would work out, but I just don't want to
I
preclude.
want somebody to write this up so I know what the survey is going to look like before I vote on it.
And
Right,
Jim,
I don't
think
want
that's
to
a great.
preclude the option of bare bones regrassing and irrigation. And I believe that the question that we just voted down that it did preclude the bare bones regrassing and irrigation, because the golf course project we have on the table right now includes the practice area and reconfiguration.
And I would like to add that I think that it would be useful to have the communications committee work with Club Benchmarking or with SurveyMonkey to develop those types of questions that we may want to add. I don't think we can resolve that here. Jim, you are right that we should have a clear you should be able to look at a clear question that wants to be asked. But the themes that Tappy is advocating, that Sherry's advocating, are appropriate. Ask those questions of our membership. So we are positioned to exercise our board responsibility and leadership, making a sound decision in presenting what the vote should be, the voting question should be in November.
Roger, I'm not disputing the reasonableness of the questions. What I'm disputing is the form of the questions. I would really like it if, Tappy, if you would agree to withdraw or table your motion until we can see what is proposed. Because I have no idea what I'm voting on, and I would probably unclear. Let's get something in writing that you're proposing, and then we can.
Fair enough.
Okay.
All right, and I'm getting text from Christine Safranek. Thank you, Christine, for listening in. And she's like, what kind of question? I don't know what kind of question to put together here. So that's fair enough. I don't think we can vote on a vague proposal that I have made. I would like that included in the option for bare bones golf course. So if I will withdraw the motion, and if we could table it and come up with a specific question. I'm sorry that it has to go for another month. Maybe we can have a special meeting. I hate having this drag out anymore. And I know Joe Collins is watching and pulling his hair out.
I don't think we can delay this for another month and
No.
carry out a vote that would allow us to do this project next year.
I agree. Yeah, I think we got to, let's move on it.
One other question I have is since we're on this whole survey topic and we're going to have to regroup and come up with additional questions, do we need to think about, I know the one question is, do you want to vote the amenity package with the golf course together, kind of is the essence of the question. I think that was the original first question. Do we need to have a question in this survey in addition to the stripping down the golf course and driving clarity with that? Should we be having a clarity question around, are the members interested in the different amenity parts? Because it's kind of an all or nothing. Do we want to get more clarity as part of, we've got an opportunity, we're doing one survey. Would it make sense to kind of get a pulse on the fitness center, the bocce? We did this 3.5 years ago. Should we make that part of this so that we get the clarity, so that when we put the vote out, we're putting the vote out in the direction that the members are most likely to vote on? Maybe coupling, there may be some things in the amenity package that the members are more interested in than the whole enchilada. So I'm just wondering if maybe if there's something we should be considering there as well.
I would be okay if with this survey question, if we took out components of master plan, if we just said, should one vote be conducted to approve amenity and golf course improvements, or should they be separate? As long as we don't marry this to the current master plan, and that we deal with that down the road, and we let the members decide if they want the enhanced golf course or the bare bones. If we do that at a later date, I would be okay with this.
Okay. Maybe we come back down the road with clarity if, depending on how things go with this survey.
Are you guys okay with that? I just don't want it married to this enhanced golf course plan.
All we want to find out with this survey is, do the members want to vote the packages together or separately?
Yes.
2 weeks from now, we can make a decision as to whether we're going to recommend to the community that we do the enhanced package or the irrigation and regrassing.
If you take out that components of master plan out of that question, so that it's not the current master plan, that it's just, are we going to vote on golf course, or are we going to vote on amenities separately or together, but not what the plan is right now, I would be okay with that.
Well, but we do have a plan that
yeah, but that may or may not be what we do.
The committee have been working on for a couple of years. I don't think we can abandon that plan at this point.
I'm not saying abandon it. I'm just saying offer another option.
But again, what do you offer them?
Well,
You're not asking them to decide on any specific issue. It's a generic question.
It's not generic because the master plan includes the enhanced golf course.
That's right.
Can we change the question? I only have my handwritten note. The survey question was going to be,
my
can we change the word "the" to "a"? So conducted on and approved a master plan.
is
Does that satisfy everybody?
that
So that it isn't this master
When you-
plan, it is a master
when
plan.
you
So should one vote be conducted to approve the combined amenity and golf course components of a master plan?
Yes. Is that okay with you?
Fine with me.
All right, is that okay with you, Tappy and Bill? And
Well, it's still, I say,
I
what
don't
master?
like the master plan. I don't,
What
why
master
don't we
plan?
use why don't we leave master plan out?
yes,
And
it
just
is.
say combined amenities and golf course.
we're voting on, that's what we're voting on is a master plan. How you can't leave it out.
Well,
That's
like
not
I
voting on the
said, how
master
do we know? How do we know that we're gonna have all of the
That's wrong.
ingredients
We're
of the
just
master
taking
plan
a
approved?
Master plan identified as a specific one to a master plan, which is a generic concept of what we're gonna vote on.
I just think keep it simple. Call it amenities and golf course, period.
And
Yes,
keeping
I
keeping
would
any
be
survey
okay with that.
simple, keeping any survey simple, don't confuse
Right.
somebody with what's a master plan.
Right.
If I'm answering a survey, I'm going to say, what the hell's a master plan? Ask me a question, ask any of us a question. Do you play bocce? Are you interested in playing bocce? Make that a simple question. A consumer's mind, an individual's mind can instantly say, yeah, I'd like to play bocce. No, I have no interest in playing bocce. As opposed to, do you want a master plan? Well, then you're creating that, what the heck is the master plan? Forget the master plan.
Right.
Let the communications committee write a simple 15 to 20 question survey
20 words.
that is largely
Word,
yes or
word.
no. And you will be able to combine these things to say, this is where we as a board should say, we're going to design a vote and move things forward. Now, I know that's a lot of pressure for the communications committee to write a survey within a 2-week period of time. It's not easy to put them together, but you can do it. You can field that for 10 days. You would get a sufficient number of votes. You'd probably have 500 to 600 different people who will complete the survey and will be prepared in the October meeting to say, this is the way we should go.
I'm sorry, I heard you say a 10 to 15 question survey. Did you
No.
mean question?
I think this a survey does this survey that we're talking about, any survey that you might do on SurveyMonkey, it's not going to cost us any more to do one question or 12
3
questions.
or 5. Yeah, right.
Right. How
Take
about
the
this?
opportunity to understand who our memberships are all about. Do some simple
And what they want.
demographic questions. Questions of how often are you in Foxfire? Questions of how many rounds of golf are you playing every year?
What do, we don't,
We
need
want
to
to
know
know
that.
those things.
Look, the Strategic Planning Committee has spent 20 months bringing the amenity components of this ahead. And they have exhausted all sorts of possibilities as to where to put things, how to put them, when to put them, et cetera. They have come to a conclusion. Okay, now you can throw all that out and start all over again, or we can say, this is the plan that's on the table, okay? The golf, we can decide after we settle the issue of, do we want to vote these things together or separately? That was the question that we were asked to ask and answer on this survey. Vote them
But
together, vote them separately.
All right, how about this? How about this? How about
Then
this?
we have an amenity component and you got a golf course component, and we can decide whether it's the enhanced golf course component or just the irrigation and regrassing.
How about this? Here's a suggestion. Do you support implementing a combined golf amenities package, or would you prefer that they be implemented or separately? How about that for a survey question?
That's not a yes, no question.
Yeah, all we want
And
to
then
know
you,
is do people.
then you have combined, marked here, separate, mark here.
Yeah,
But separate, what is separate?
Yeah, see, I agree with Bill. We've had a great committee working for a long time to put this together, and they've come up with a proposal. And I think it is our job that the members vote on that proposal. It is not our job to redo what the strategic planning committee did. They are good people, and we do them a disservice if we ignore what they have done and recommended to us. I think it's an insult to them, frankly, that we're now going to pick this all apart and start over on it. I still think we're going to lose a window opportunity to get things done on this course and for this club. And if the members want to vote it down, so be it. Let them vote it down. But we've got a plan now, and let's not second guess or micromanage this thing. Let's let the members vote on it, not us.
Absolutely.
Well, going back to.
Can we have a survey that just says, would you like to vote on the golf course improvements combined with amenities or not?
Yes,
That's
yes or no?
That's what Bill
That's
just read.
exactly what I
That's what he
said. Should
proposed.
one
and that's-
vote?
No, he did. No, he
No,
did
he
not.
added in the
No,
master
he did
plan.
not. He added in master plan. I'm suggesting we take out master plan.
Correct. I agree with Tappy.
Fine, let's take out master plan. Should one vote be conducted to approve the combined amenity and golf course packages? Why, instead of master plan package, what word do you want to use?
Improvement,
Golf course improvement.
Improve.
improvements.
Right. I'm making a motion that we adopt that motion, that question, and send it out immediately for a survey.
Okay, I'll
I
repeat.
second
I have
that.
a question about the golf course improvement, because how do the members know what the golf course improvement is? When you send that question out in the survey, if they haven't heard that strategic planning with the improved practice areas and all of that, what are they voting on? What are they weighing in on in the survey, because they don't know what's included in golf course improvements?
Yeah,
We have to spell it out.
The amenities aren't in there too. We're not being specific about amenities either. The question is now pared down to yes or no. You want to vote on them together or separately?
And actually, I'll go along with Bill on this. Let's to get this out there, and then we can have a vote question on, do you want irrigation and regrassing or the whole 9 yards? Yes or no?
Yep.
So the
I'm okay
question that will go out is, should one vote be conducted to approve the combined amenity and golf course improvements?
Yeah,
Second.
I can live with that. Yeah.
And I move,
Okay.
I
Wait,
move.
wait. If you're just going to talk about the golf course, we're not talking about the other portions of what are going to eventually be presented to the membership. There is an amenity package that
It just
many
gives
of
us
us feel
direction.
is very good.
It just gives us direction. If they say they want it separately, then we start working on golf course. Do you want regrassing irrigation? Do you want this enhanced? It'll give us direction. We don't have to come up with all the specifics right now. We've already done that, actually.
All the specifics of the amenities are out there. That's what we discussed Tuesday. That's what's on the webpage. Any member can go there and find out specifically what these amenity features are that we want to improve. And as Barry pointed out, we have all these amenities at the present time. It's a question of, do we want to upgrade them or not?
So here's a question for you. We're on a kind of a time factor here, Dr. Cornetta. I mean, we're literally bumping up against a window. And if we don't get the clarity on the golf course portion of it as part of this, and we do this survey, we've only got a short window of time. So if we don't get the clarity for what we do with the golf course portion of it, in this survey that we have one opportunity to do this because of the timing, we're going to end up putting it out for a vote. And then if we're going to be back down the path, we're going to delay everything.
You want to add the second question?
Why can't we do the survey with the golf course as well?
Okay,
With the two questions, with the question I asked,
let's ask the second
the
question.
irrigation, grassing, or the practice area.
Okay, so question one would be, should one vote be conducted to approve the combined amenity and golf course improvements? And number two
Yes.
is do you prefer irrigation and regrassing only, or the enhanced golf course improvements?
Yeah, that works.
That works for me
That
too.
work?
Okay,
That works.
all right, well then,
Wait till Jim gets back.
So it's two questions.
two questions, and each subject to a yes or no answer.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Did I formally retract my motion? If not, I do.
So the second question would be, do you prefer
As opposed to trying to write the question and as a group here, can we give instruction to the communications committee to design the question about what we're trying to solve for? We're trying to
well, the second question in essence would say, do you prefer irrigation and regrassing only or the enhanced plan? And you would check off one of those two.
right.
That's good. That's good.
Let them write the question.
Yes, we will. But that's the essence of it.
That's correct.
Okay. I know Christine is probably listening, so.
Yes, she is. She's texting me.
we'll begin
What do you
working.
think, Christine?
Hopefully, we will have a sample of this ready to go in the next day or two, and we'll get it to all the board members.
Okay, do we need to vote? We
Pardon?
got a motion and a second. We need to vote.
Well, we don't have this in final form.
I'll withdraw the.
So what we want to do is conceptually agree to have two questions, one about the vote and one about the irrigation and regrassing or enhanced golf course, okay?
Do we have to have a special meeting or can we just do this by email?
What if you vote to authorize the communications committee to develop
Yeah.
the survey components and two questions? Authorize that.
Hello?
And if we have to have a special meeting, we'll do it by Zoom and go from there.
Well, I'm okay with taking a vote on this conceptual question and authorizing the communications committee to do it with the understanding of what it is we want to determine.
Fine.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
So do we make a motion then to,
subject to the approval of the board members to the exact wording, we ask the communications committee to develop these two questions.
Okay, so moved.
And
Second.
hopefully get this out into the hands of members by the middle of next week.
Yeah, I don't want to delay it any longer than
Yeah.
necessary, and I'm willing to vote on a motion now to proceed with it.
Okay, so is there a?
John seconded it.
I
Is there any
second
more
it.
dis-
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay.
Did you and Jim vote?
Sorry,
Did you vote on the motion?
we did.
I didn't hear you say aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye, aye.
That's right.
I'll second that motion, John.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's my agenda here. All right, next is approve the statutory changes to the governing documents. This is just a formal act. Is there a motion to officially approve the statutory changes to our governing documents?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
The statutory wording was included in the revised documents from Steve Falk,
Mhm.
which was rejected. So I would, if we're going to approve statutory changes, I would like to see what those statutory provisions are, because they're
They're all in
embedded
there.
in
They
the
were all in
revision.
bold.
No, I understand that, but they're embedded in a revision, which we rejected.
Right.
So I would like to see the Florida statute number that applies to each of the bolding that is he has included in the revisions. Because otherwise we don't even have to worry about it, because under our bylaws, 1.5 says the master association shall be subject to Chapter 720 Florida statutes.
Right.
So we're already governed by it. So I don't
Right.
understand what we need to do here.
Well, we just wanted to formally make these a part of the documents, because we have to recreate a new set of documents that incorporates these statutory changes.
Right. So we would have to rewrite the existing documents that we have now and include those in there.
Right.
And the one thing that I would like to make sure of is I had found on a couple of occasions, some of the statutory revisions that he had in there were actually, he had left sections out and things like that. So I want to make sure everything is complete, that we're not missing anything regarding any statutory revisions.
Well, the next step would be to ask Steve to incorporate the statutory changes into our existing documents, to create a new set of documents.
Yeah, the most up-to-date statutory changes. So basically what we would do is we would have the amendments formatted properly, so you'd actually have a document in front of you that you'd vote on. This is really just to have him go ahead and do that, so that we will have a new set of documents with the updated statutory changes.
So
And would we
just to
approve
be
those
clear,
documents?
Go ahead, John.
just to be clear, he's going to incorporate the statutory requirements. He'll go line by line or provision by provision and incorporate the statutory part into our current documents.
Right,
That's
yeah.
correct.
correct.
So we have a set of documents that's current. Okay, so we will send this off to Steve.
Good, formatted, yes.
Okay. The Foxfire Legacy Fund. Jim?
Well, I brought an earlier draft to the last meeting, and there were still some bumps along the road, so we took it back. I've held several meetings, had many email exchanges have gone through a number of additional revisions. And in fact, the most recent revision was sent out to Steve Falk, our attorney, for his comment. And maybe I should begin with his comment. He had two recommended changes. One had to do with competitive bidding requirements, which I believe was to be inserted in paragraph 7. I could be wrong, but I have produced a revised version, which is not the one you have in front of you, which includes those recommendations that he made. And the other recommendation he made was that we ought to reconsider the 2/3 majority requirement in paragraph 9 for amendment of this charter. I had originally drafted that as just a simple majority of the board, and like any other action of the board. And in one of our final conferences with Sherry Straka and Ray Garrity, Mr. Garrity suggested he would be happier with a 2/3 majority, so I made that change. Steve questions that and wonders whether that should be a majority, as every other action of the board is. At this point, we have now other than those two changes by Steve Falk, everything else was approved by him. We have just a couple of minor things for you to consider as we move forward with this, and I'm just praying this is successful. I have no idea whether this is going to work or not, but I think if we do move it forward, then I want to see it given to the Communications Committee, and I would want to work with them to start developing a way of promoting opportunities under this fund and do it in a timely fashion so that we can take advantage of the vote that's coming up in the event the vote is approved, that maybe we can combine people who wish to donate with the vote on the improvement. So I'd like to see this done relatively soon so that we can get that to the Communications Committee. There are a couple of issues remaining for you. One is in paragraph 1. I had originally drafted this, I went through several changes, but the final version that emerged after a lot of conversation was that this Foxfire Legacy Fund would assume the duties of the Memorial Fund. And that because they were essentially doing the same thing on different scales, there was no need to have two committees. One committee would suffice to handle both duties, what the Memorial Committee has historically done and what the new scope of the Legacy Fund as I drafted it. I think it's fair to say, and she can speak to this if she wants, Ms. Straka wanted to keep two separate committees, wanted the Memorial Fund Committee to continue doing its work, and this would be a separate committee. So if you have read paragraph 1, you will note that the last sentence says if the Foxfire Board of Directors so chooses, it may continue to maintain the Memorial Fund as a separate ongoing entity, performing the same functions it has historically performed. And if that's the case, then what I've drafted here applies only to the new committee. So if you may want to weigh in on whether you want two committees or just one committee. And the other question that was raised was the involvement of our finance committee here at Foxfire. As I had originally drafted this, there was to be a member of the finance committee on the Legacy Fund Committee. I have to tell you, the finance committee has been extraordinarily helpful in fashioning this draft that you see in front of you. They've helped me with tax issues and accounting issues, and their involvement, because so much of what this proposed committee will be involved in, major donations, major agreements with donors, how funds are invested, how they are spent, how they are accounted for, tax status of different things, because there are so many questions that will come up in a committee like this. I felt strongly that the finance committee should be involved. I have made them a member. One member of the finance committee would be a member of this committee. In conversations with our little group, Mr. Garrity objected to that. He wanted this committee to be independent. So then I switched it to making a member of the finance committee to be a non-voting liaison to this Legacy Fund Committee. That was in an earlier draft. Mr. Garrity still objected to that. And so I then rewrote it, and you'll find it in, I hope, I can't, that I forget where it is, to be honest.
Paragraph 3.
Three, is it? That if the board may, in its discretion, appoint a member of the Finance Committee as a non-voting liaison. So I said, okay, if you and I, Ray, can't agree on this, then we'll let the board decide it. And that's why I wrote it that way. I still strongly feel that the Finance Committee absolutely should be involved in this legacy fund program. We have on that committee just an amazingly talented group of people, bankers, accountants, auditors, CPAs, and not to use their guidance and their expertise and their knowledge is I think, inexcusable. And I would strongly urge this board to have the Finance Committee involved in the legacy fund in some fashion, whether they're a member or whether they are a non-voting liaison. I still think we need their input on this. So other than those changes that I've discussed, whether it's one committee or two committees, and whether there's a Finance Committee representative on there, and whether we can amend it with a simple vote or a 2/3 vote, I think it's ready for final approval. It has been vetted by our attorney, as I mentioned earlier. So here it is.
Jim, can I just ask a question on this last point you're making? Because it's very important to Ray, it sounds like. I think you appropriately said if, in paragraph 3, you say, if possible, one member shall be an attorney. And that also continues on to if one member shall or have a background in finance. I think those are important guidelines. It doesn't limit anybody in the future. And this current board really isn't going to be the driver on this particular piece. It's probably going to be 3 to 5 years down the road. Some board will come together and they're given direction to say, if possible, consider having this. But it doesn't limit them. It gives them the flexibility. And I think by writing it the way you wrote it is appropriate. It gives flexibility to future boards to be able to say, but it gives them good guidance to say, get an attorney in here, consider getting an attorney, consider having somebody with a financial background. So I like the way you phrased it. I just want to know that, Sherry, perhaps you could weigh in. Are you comfortable with it?
Hi, Lynn.
I am comfortable to an extent. I do believe, and Jim had mentioned, I do believe that the Memorial Fund should remain kind of as a separate committee from this legacy, because the legacy donations are very large donations that may be supporting purchasing a bocce court or a fitness center, or they're intended to be very large donations, versus our members who donate because someone has passed away and they want to share their condolences, and we've got this fund that's intended for beautifying the golf course or our surrounding areas. So I do believe that we could establish the Legacy Committee or Legacy Fund Committee as the top overarching committee, and have the Memorial Committee be a subcommittee under that if we want to do something like that. But I do believe they still should remain separate and not commingled together. That's one point. And then I think the other thing that I've shared with Jim is there's a whole lot more work that has to go into this, because we need kind of the policies of what the donor is what their rights are, what their rights aren't. That's not spelled out in this document. Some of the governance that we have, I think we may need more details around it, but I think this is a good starting point to get us rolling with this. And I really believe we should be getting some type of endowment or legacy fund kind of an attorney involved. I know that Jim solicited out to Steve Falk. He's an HOA attorney, not necessarily someone that has the background in running these big funds like this. But what I want to make sure is that our members that might donate into this, I don't want Foxfire, our board, our operations, the committee to be put at risk if anything goes wrong with these large sums of money that we might get into Foxfire and how we're managing it. I have concerns about the risk aspects of it, but those are details that need to be sorted out as we go forward. I think conceptually this is a good starting point.
Yeah, I would strongly support having a member of the finance committee being part of the governance of this. I think this is so intimately involved with Foxfire's finances in terms of, what does it say? The controller adopts procedures to keep these things in separate accounts and sub-accounts, and it's included in the regular audit of Foxfire. You know, I think it's essential that somebody from the finance committee be a participant in the governance of this.
We may also want to, when we're thinking about these improvements, if there's a large amount in this legacy/memorial fund, we may want to put that money towards, as somebody said, the bocce court or, you know, some of the other amenities we're talking about.
If these do become large funds, if we could think of, I don't know, an endowment fund that a hospital may have. I'm going to give $1 million to NCH for the Heart Center. That's the only way I'm going to give my $1 million to them. That person has certain rights, and you got to let them go there. Doesn't mean that they can't be, that those overall funds can't be managed by the same committee, but the committee knows very clearly that endowment is only good if it goes to the Heart Center. It's the same thing with what we're going to do. If somebody says, and Jim, I don't know if you should put a dollar limit on this. If a member says, I'm willing to give $10,000 to this legacy fund, but I want my money to go to a particular area, can they do that? Can they specify?
You want me to answer it for you, Roger?
Yeah, please.
Most of the donations will be unrestricted donations.
Okay, very good. Then lay that in there, and that's fine.
In the case of restricted donations, where the donor wants it to go for a specific project, or the donor wants naming rights included, we have that is authorized in there, but it has to be subject to an agreement between the Legacy Fund Committee and the donor. And I would strongly encourage it to be reduced to writing, but whatever the proposal is, and then it has to be brought before our board for approval for restricted donations. And this gets a little bit to what Sherry was objecting to. I cannot possibly begin to imagine all the different types of restrictions people may want to put on donations, and therefore right. I can't write all those things into this agreement. All I can do is put in there a procedure, which if somebody wants to make a restricted donation, he comes to an agreement that's approved by the Legacy Fund Committee and then approved by the board. And somewhere along the way, if it's big enough, certainly you're going to want to get it in writing. And I also put in there it has to be signed by the donor, and it has to be put in a separate account and can only be spent for the purposes of the donor. So we as a board may decide, well, for $5,000, we're not going to go through all this rigmarole. I'm sorry, it's not worth it. But for $100,000, it certainly is worth it. And we'll write up an agreement, and this is what we're going to do. So I cannot anticipate all the different things that may come up, or all the different donations or restrictions or whatever donors may want. All I can do is create a procedure where it is handled appropriately, and that's what I think I've done here. And our attorney seems to agree.
As a board member, and as somebody that may want to contribute down the road, I'm very comfortable with what you said. If I give my $10,000, then it should be unrestricted. I don't want to restrict anybody. I'm doing it because I want to support this club. if I'm given $1 million, then I would want to have some naming rights or something. I don't know what the heck it is.
Right.
But I'm comfortable with the unrestricted, and I like the way you're saying it.
And one other thing, Roger, the Legacy Fund Committee may decide they want to establish a fund for bocce courts or a new swimming pool, whatever it may be, and they may say, we're now accepting donations for this particular project, and they will give a certificate to any donor who donates. That's allowed in this also. We can
Okay.
have specific projects. But yes, it is generally assumed that most of the donations will be unrestricted.
Hey, Jim, question in terms of the unrestricted. In paragraph 2, section C, gifts for specific assets or purchases. Now, should that actually be eliminated where you do want to have the convey the message that you're looking for really unrestricted funds? And where this does is this, indicates that you're specifying something specific.
I wouldn't take it out, to be honest with you, because you don't want to not be authorized to accept $10,000 for a new charging station for the cart barn. I think what we're talking about is a difference in how this is marketed or sold by the Communications Committee versus what this committee is authorized to take. And I would encourage us to keep the flexibility that if somebody wants to give $10,000 for a statue of John Houck to go on the 9th green, that we want to do it, we can accept that money, and that's fine. I think that's appropriate.
Well, just going back to the general discussion, I would feel better is if somehow we could put this in front of a lawyer or an individual who has the experience in gift giving or endowments, just to make sure that what is being stated here is really seems to comply with that type of industry situation.
Okay.
That would be the last kind of check and balance.
Jim, with that check and balance, what would a lawyer charge us to draw this up? Are we going to pay him or her?
Draw up what I've done? I don't know. Probably $5,000 to $8,000. If they did it for.
You want to spend $5,000 to $8,000 from Memorial Fund to
Z Country Club, they just change the name. Maybe they'll do it for $4,000, but they're still going to charge for the time they put into developing that.
And they have a right to charge for their professional time, and that's good.
Well, that's how lawyers pay for their boats.
Right.
Well,
They get all that money for endowments.
couple of things to be resolved. Number one, does the board wish to maintain the memorial fund as a separate ongoing entity?
No.
Yes.
Okay, well, would somebody put that in the form of a motion so we can resolve this?
I make a motion that when the Legacy Fund is created, that the Memorial Fund be incorporated in it.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of merging the Memorial Fund into the Legacy Fund once it's fully developed, please say aye.
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 It is 3 ayes, all opposed.
Oppose?
Sherry, you're muted.
Sure is me.
Sherry?
What club is it on?
Sherry, you're muted.
And
Jerry?
And what happened to
Mark
Roger?
is gone.
Not Roger, I mean Mark. What happened to Mark?
Oh, dropped out.
John, can you help us understand why you're opposed to it? You didn't make any comments.
Well, No, I just
You
look
want
at
two
the
separate
fact of
committees?
yeah, I would like to see them as separate entities because you're talking at one point, the legacy fund, you're talking much larger dollars. And I think that needs a whole separate consideration where the memorial fund is more the smaller dollars that are donated, which I just think they should be separate, period.
I agree.
What's the
Sorry, I
difference?
was muted and couldn't get off mute.
Okay.
So
What's the difference if it's a large
I
amount or small?
believe, well, because the thing is, Tappy, is this memorial fund was established and set up for the beautification of Foxfire. It has a very specific charter where the money is to be appropriated for beautification. So if we commingle it with the legacy fund, and the legacy fund is for large master, whatever, the focus of the, well, that's what it is. It's for large capital improvement purchases is what it's really going to become when you get $250,000 to $1 million or more from members that are donating. They're going to be donating, and they may want to, fund a fitness center, or they may want to fund a bocce court, or they may want to fund a tennis improvement, which is different than planting flowers at Foxfire, putting in an eagle statue, putting in fountains for the ponds. I mean, these are the things that the Memorial Fund has paid for. And if you commingle it all together, are you going to suck the money and are you going to keep it separated? How are you going to manage the meetings when you're focusing on big dollar figures, and then are you going to apportion a portion of the time of the meeting to talk about those beautification things? Because members are donating to beautify Foxfire as part of the donation. So I really believe that it should be this separate subcommittee. If you want to be a subcommittee under legacy, fine. But
so your objection, you're worried that these small donations, that it will not go to beautification, that all of this money will go into big projects, and then we'll ignore the smaller projects such as fountains.
And the thing, what this was established, yes, and that's what it was set up and established for. We're losing the focus of what that fund was set up for and what members donate to.
Well, we're
They're
not,
not donating to fund a fitness center or to fund a bocce court. They're donating, it's like if you were sending flowers to someone when their husband dies or a spouse dies. And it was intended for beautification of Foxfire. It could be helping with our front entrances when we need to plant flowers, when we're improving those are the kinds of discussions we need to have. And I think you're gonna get in a big discussion versus a small.
Sherry, are you saying that you want a subcommittee within the memorial committee for this?
No.
Or are you saying you want a completely separate committee for the legacy fund?
Here's what I would recommend. I think there's a compromise here, which is we could have a legacy fund committee, and we could have a subcommittee, which is the memorial fund committee, which meets for the beautification purposes. The subcommittee sits under the legacy committee. The legacy committee is going to deal with all these big, large, donations and how to manage into that. And the memorial committee can continue to keep its focus on the beautification, but it's a subcommittee underneath the legacy committee. That's what I would recommend. I think that would work.
Well, it does say in this charter that number one, and the mission, it says to beautify, enhance, and improve Foxfire. So the beautification is right here in this charter.
That's how that's what I was going to say. I wrote that in there specifically, that they are to accept donations to beautify, enhance, and improve Foxfire. So it is part of their mission to do exactly what Sherry is advocating.
Yeah, it is.
well, I'm afraid we're not going to be able to resolve this. There are 6 board members, 3 who want to merge it and 3 who don't. So
Did you vote?
I voted against it. I think the Memorial Fund should be separate. It's just, it's a fund that works.
Right, I agree.
So I guess we just leave it to the ongoing discretion of boards in the future. But for the
I'm
moment,
sorry, so are we're
Yes.
scrapping the whole idea of the legacy fund? No,
pardon?
No,
we're not scrapping the whole idea of the legacy
Oh,
fund. We're
no.
just not rolling the,
The idea of merging the memorial fund into it. We cannot
Fine.
resolve it because we're deadlocked.
got
So
it, fine.
we'll leave it, the language that's there, and future boards can change it if they so desire. In terms of Finance Committee being a member, I personally think that a member of the Finance Committee should be a member of the Legacy Fund.
now, are we talking a permanent member or acting as a liaison?
Liaison.
I would say a voting member personally, but
And
I
a
believe
voting
this
member also.
area, this was an area that Ray was very concerned about, and he's the one that really started this whole
What,
effort. He and I worked on this with Frank McGrory long before Jim came into the picture to write the proposal. And I know he feels very strongly about this. I think a compromise, a good compromise here, kind of meeting in the middle is, make a Finance Committee member a liaison to this committee as we do with the other committees.
okay.
They don't have to be a voting member.
So is there a motion to, at this point, name a Finance Committee member as a non-voting liaison to the committee?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second,
Any further discussion?
yeah, I'd like to say, if we don't even know if we're going to establish a Foxfire Legacy Fund, if we're going to create a separate committee, we need to establish whether we're going to have a separate committee. I mean, I was originally in favor of keeping this verbiage based on the legacy and memorial fund coming together. If we want to keep the memorial fund committee completely separate, fine. Now we have to determine, are we going to create a committee for a legacy fund? And if we want to do that, we've got zero money at this particular point in time. There may be somebody at the end of this year who say, here's $10,000 for you to launch your legacy fund. We got to have a committee to run it. Are we saying that we want to have one member say who belongs on the committee? I don't think so. I think that we want to have the board be able to say, we're going to go recruit committee members that are going to work on this legacy fund.
That's
I
exactly,
think
that's exactly what I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
The question is, should a member of the Finance Committee be a non-voting liaison to this committee? I think it should be. So that's the motion that's on the table. And seconded. So is there further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the Finance Committee having a non-voting liaison to the Legacy Fund, say aye.
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 I'll say aye. I don't know if we'll establish a legacy fund committee.
Well, then it becomes moot, I guess.
I would say it.
Any opposed to the Finance Liaison? Okay, and finally, the issue of the amendments. We're proposing that it be there'd be a 7-member board with a majority 7.
No,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
This can only be amended by our board of directors,
Mhm.
which is a 7-member board.
Right.
I had originally proposed that it be
Okay.
done in the other action of this board, namely a majority vote.
Right.
It was Mr. Garrity that wanted a supermajority, so I asked if 2/3 was acceptable to him. He said it was. That was the provision that Steve Falk questioned, whether we want to make this just like any other action of the board. That's my recommendation, but I'll let the board decide it.
Personally, I
Well,
don't see why it should be different from any other action of the board. An action of the majority of directors is the action of the board. That's the way our governing documents are written.
Right. Well, in paragraph 3, you have 5 members of the committee shall constitute a quorum, and the affirmative vote of a quorum will be sufficient to approve. So in essence, what you're saying is we should change that language just to a simple majority of
No.
the committee.
I think you're talking, there's 2 different committees. The one you're referring to is the Legacy Fund Committee. The one in paragraph 9 we're talking about now is our board of directors.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Amendments have to be approved by the board.
The board is defined as our board of directors.
And I think, you know, a majority of the board should control it. I don't see why we need a supermajority.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to accept that change to paragraph 9 that may be amended at any time by a majority of the board at a regularly scheduled and noticed meeting?
I think, Bill, the only issue that's come up in the discussion is the fact that we've kind of had a divided board, and that's part of the reason that this was written in here. That, you know, many of our motions that we put up, it's 4-3, and there's a feeling that, you know, we had a discussion about should it be unanimous when we're looking at $1 million investments that may come from someone that's donating, and that, you know, because of the large size of the potential donations, that we should consider a 2/3 majority with the board. Because of the way the voting history has gone on in the last couple of years with the board.
Let me just say something. This will not affect donations. Donations that are made, that are agreed to, are locked in by contract law. This deals only with amendments to this charter document, which would be on a going forward basis. So it really has no effect on any donations that were given.
Exactly. So if somebody says, I will give you $1 million if you, if at least 5 out of the 7 board members vote on this, then that board is going to have to say, hey, for $1 million we'll do it. If somebody said, I'm going to give you $10,000 if you do it, we're going to say no. You know what? It's not. It's unrestricted. We can spend it any way we want to.
No, we don't change our governing documents and our procedures for money. That's like the old George Bernard Shaw.
Well, you will
We've
change it.
determined what you are haggling over price.
Some board will say, if you give me $1 million, we'll make it unanimous if we have to. Make it 50. Make it a majority in this amendment, the way Jim is recommending it, and we'll be fine.
Yeah, just a majority. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a motion to make that change, maybe amended by a majority of the board at a regularly scheduled and noticed meeting. Any further discussion of that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, does that give you?
Yes, I will make the changes we discussed. I understand that the Memorial Fund will continue to exist as a separate committee, and I will make that change. I'll make the other 2 changes as well. Then, but subject to that, I think we perhaps ought to want to take action on this now, if that's what you want to do.
Make a motion?
Well, I feel a little bit conflicted, but I'll move we adopt the charter of the Foxfire Legacy Fund as drafted, subject to the changes that were voted on today at the meeting.
Okay, you've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? None? Unanimous.
Good. Well, then I move on to the Communications Committee and start talking to Christina.
And to the attorney.
Which attorney?
Oh, you sorry, you sorry,
Yeah,
take it back,
yeah.
take it back. Okay. Moving on. The standing committees. I'll give just a brief strategic planning committee report. You were all at the presentation the other day. You know where things stand in regard to the strategic planning committee, and Donald gave a report on the pool. So we'll go on to the communication committee and
Hey, Bill, can I just go back to the strategic planning committee?
sure.
One thing that we don't have, or at least I don't have, is all I have are two numbers, 7 million for the amenities and 3 million for the golf course. So I'd like to see that we get from Barry or whoever knows the breakdown, the individual breakdown of the amenities as well as the extra monies in the golf course, just so we as directors know exactly what's involved.
That's it's available, John, and you will get it. We have it now, so.
Okay.
It's broken down by amenity for the strategic planning side.
So Barry or you will get that out to us?
Donald will see that it gets in your hands.
I'll get it to you, to all of you.
Okay?
Okay.
The Communications Committee, all I want to say is that they've done a remarkable job in a very tight time frame, and with each passing meeting and webinar, they're getting more and more proficient at doing these things, and this is certainly in keeping with our desire to move forward on the technology front. Finance Committee.
Finance Committee will be meeting in October. I think we're all up to date. Lynn Anderson's done a terrific job, and the entire Finance Committee's done a terrific job of working with operations. Operations should be applauded for the fact that we're going to meet budgets this year. Donald has already pointed those things out to do the work that the operations team has done since February, and we've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue against budget. But I looked at February, we were running well ahead of budget, both in terms of operations revenue and operations results. COVID-19 knocked some wind out of us, but we're going to make a bottom line this year, and every member of this community should be absolutely ecstatic at the great work that operations has done. Finance stayed right at their side on an ongoing basis, listening to them as to what they were going to cut back. And it tells me that operations is in great position to operate in a contingency fashion in the first quarter of this coming fiscal year. So kudos to them, and thanks to Finance for pulling it together. The House Committee will be meeting in October. They're going to be listening along with the Social Committee very closely to the Medical Advisory Committee. As Bill has already pointed out, you're going to be doing things on a month-by-month basis. I think that's entirely appropriate. Is the Social Committee and the House Committee, are they disappointed that we're not getting things moving faster? Yeah, they will be, but they understand it. And the Medical Advisory Committee is going to be listened to by the House Committee and the Social Committee on a regular basis, and they'll voice their opinions and represent the community at large. So they're in good shape, and we'll move forward.
Green Committee.
I think you've heard from the Green. Haven't met for a while, but I think you're up to date on the Green Committee.
Health and Wellness.
Health and Wellness, one member has stepped aside, that's Mary Jackstead, and I'd like the approval of Sandy LeBlanc and Eileen Stoller as members of Health and Wellness.
Okay.
I make a motion for that.
Motion to approve those two candidates for the Health and Wellness Committee. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion?
Oh, I just want to add that they're extremely qualified.
Good. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
None. Foxtails,
Nothing new from Foxtails. We're getting our next issue out now.
Audubon. Golf Committee, Donna O'Brien has sent a list of a roster for the Golf Committee for the coming year, consisting of herself as chair, Don Noss as vice chair, Martha Field, secretary, Robert Peter as men's league president, Lynn Anderson, the ladies 18-hole league president, Dottie Ishia as the ladies 9-hole league president, Bob Dixon, Margie Murphy, and Charlie Pancoast. Is there a motion to approve the members of the golf committee?
I motion to approve.
Second,
Second.
discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Any further committees on your agenda who wish to make a report?
Just wanted to bring, oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I just want to let you know that the Memorial Committee will be meeting on Monday. So we'll have more to report next month.
Thank you. Any other?
Yeah, just wanted to mention concerning the ARC. I am sure probably in October we'll have our first meeting, but I also wanted to bring up a point about conflicting master declaration provisions. We have 3.2, which states that the ARC has control or approval of all colors within Foxfire. But then 4.1 says that the association is really exempt from that. And so I bring this up because I've seen in one of the exhibits the mention of painting the clubhouse. We also have the painting of the pool house and things like that. So I just wanted to see that things were going to go through what I consider the proper way, and having the ARC sign off on any colors, whether it's association or private ownership.
Doesn't the board approve colors that the ARC presents to us?
Correct, and that's the palette of colors that you find in the
Right.
office. But 4.1 says that essentially the association is exempt from any consideration concerning colors. So
Well, the
they
board
can
supersedes the
consider-
ARC. The board supersedes the ARC.
But these are master declaration provisions. So you have competing provisions. If one was a bylaw and one was a master declaration, then the master declaration would override the bylaw. But these are two separate declarations. So even though you have the board on one hand and the ARC on the other hand, they're both dictated by our governing document.
One of the things about colors that I hope the ARC gets a chance to explore in the future is, don't say colors, say hues and tones. If I went to, I'm dead serious about this. If I was going to Home Depot to buy paint, they have over 2,200 different hues and tones, which includes multiple tones about colors of gray. If you went to any other paint supplier, Sherwin-Williams, etc., they all have over 2,000 different hues and tones. So deciding on the painting color or color of the clubhouse may not be exactly the same limited number of colors that we have in the art committee. We want hues and tones for that decision of the clubhouse.
Well, yeah, I mean, basically you can take what the ARC has given and approved the palette. And as an example, if the association or the board wants to see a different hue or tone for the clubhouse, then the board would have to approve that to essentially override the ARC requirements in essence.
Okay, I'm comfortable with that. I just don't want, operations may come with a hue and tone that's slightly off our colors. We have to vote on it.
We'd have to vote on it, yeah.
And so just to add to that, so Mr. Bailey and Mr. Gavigan, we just had this discussion about not getting locked in just to pure color swatch numbers for the color palette. So we are going to, the ARC is going to work toward really what's restricted, and then more than likely a broader range of grays and whites and et cetera, et cetera. So we don't get so restrictive per se.
Yeah, I think right now we have roughly, what, 90 colors, quote unquote, that are approved.
Right.
Okay, thank you, John. Any other committee reports? You had in your board book correspondence from Mr. Baker. And I think Donald addressed that in his earlier comments. And now we go around the table. John, you had a series of things you wanted to discuss.
Right. The first one is the issue of the cart lease and the trail fee programs. I know Roger has been communicating with a member over this, and actually I have heard from a couple of other members. And what the point is, from the way I understand it, a couple who has a trail fee and a couple who has a cart lease, if both spouses are playing at the same time but separately, that means that one spouse is allowed to use a Foxfire cart for free. So there are two parts here. Number one, if we get into obviously we get into October and November, that's going to be impractical as far as I can see, because you're going to have more people wanting to play and you're giving up a Foxfire cart. And number two, Foxfire, the way I look at it, the one spouse who's not using either the lease cart or their own cart would be charged a standard cart fee for playing either 9 or 18 holes. What that does is that gives Foxfire added revenue in these types of situations. And it also, I think, makes single owners who own their own carts and do cart lease, at least it kind of allays the pain, so to speak, that, you know, they're a single and a double, a couple is getting the benefit of a free cart.
John, can I comment on that because you raised my name?
Yeah, sure.
I haven't copied all of the board on some of the things that I shared with the member that has raised this. She had some concerns about discrimination towards singles. I don't think there's any discrimination towards singles at all, but I have promised her that I would ask the finance committee to discuss this at their October meeting. And I have shared with Sherry if she would bring this up for potential discussion with the golf committee. One of the things that I would say about people who, two people in a household who may be on a golf course, one of the things that we have to consider is that one of the members in a two household who brings their own cart out there, they will put another person in their cart with them who will not have to use one of our club carts during season. So that member is going to be able to ease the load of use of carts. I mean, that's a factor. And the other big overwhelming
Roger-
thing- yes, sure.
Roger, one quick comment about that. Yes, we as private cart owners, if someone rides with us, they ride with us, but the club charges them a cart fee to ride in our cart.
No question about that. But we didn't have the wear and tear on the cart because that passenger got in the cart with you. And I have the same thing because I have my own cart. And we have garages where we can store the carts. We're helping the overall club make certain that there are available carts for other people to use. So people with trail fee situations do support the club's overall expense issue. The other big thing that we've got to keep in mind, and I know the Finance Committee will talk about this, and I'm sure that the Golf Committee will talk about it, Sherry, if you choose to get
Right.
discussions going with it, is everything in a common area in this community is an amenity. The golf course is an amenity. Not all of the amenities are going to ever be used in an equal fashion. We subsidize everyone as members. We subsidize every single amenity in this community. RSM would tell us that 30% of all of our golf costs between carts and the golf course itself are subsidized by the members. We subsidize the swimming pool. We have made a contribution of $250,000 out of our repair and replacement cost this summer to the swimming pool. Now, we haven't updated the swimming pool in 30 years, so it's not like we're hitting people for $600 out of the capital improvement fund, capital repair and replacement fund this summer, but it does come out to about $30 out of for each member for the capital repair and replacement that we can all voted unanimously to support the swimming pool. In addition, every one of us are spending $35 to $40 a year for the master swimming pool. So this year, we have spent $70 per member to drive a rehabilitation to our swimming pool. I'm perfectly comfortable with that. I think that makes sense. This is the master swimming pool. The master swimming pool is used by largely Villas One, single-family homeowners who don't have a swimming pool, members who say, gee, I really would like to swim longer lengths in the lap pool.
So Roger, are
It's
you
used
saying?
by, Sherry, let me finish this, please. They also have yoga classes around that particular pool. It's not used by everybody. I think it's entirely appropriate that we have a master swimming pool that looks good and has good quality about it. But amenities are subsidized, whether it's the House Committee, the Food and Beverage Committee, whether it's the swimming pool, whether it's tennis courts, whether it is the golf course. We're going to subsidize it. We chose that when we came in to a homeowners association. And that should be discussed at the golf committee, and that should be discussed by the finance committee. And then say, are we doing things fairly? Or did we discriminate to a household did we discriminate against Roger Saunders because his wife doesn't play golf like she used to, and I'm the only guy? Or did we benefit Roger Saunders? And there's lots of different issues. We are not discriminating against singles in this community. I would abhor that personally if we discriminated against anybody. but we should talk about it.
Hey, Roger, I mean, I don't look at it as discrimination. In my mind, it's
That's what was
essentially
phrased
an
to
inequity.
me. That's what was phrased to me, John, that there was discrimination.
Okay, well, that's something that obviously you'll have to deal with her on. But I look at it as an inequity in terms of a couple getting the free use of a Foxfire cart when they're playing golf separately. That's my point, and that fact means that essentially Foxfire is losing revenue by not being out and by not charging that spouse the regular cart fee for 9 or 18 holes. I think definitely it should be discussed in the finance committee in some way to maybe find I think it would be an easy solution that, you know, the spouse not using the cart, they get charged. That would be easy to figure out.
No, there's a lot of inequities between singles and couples. And as a single, you benefit from it sometimes, and as a single, you do not benefit from it sometimes. One of the ways that I benefit is through the Chelsea system, for example. I don't have a spouse who's playing golf 5 times a week, so I can play when I want to. So, you know, you can't pick out one of these things and say we've got to fix it, because there are a lot of other things that are going on that have to do with singles and couples.
This will.
Well, this isn't singles, it's more couples. This is a couple situation.
So I'd like to weigh in as a single and as, I think there is, and Roger, I would propose that maybe we look at, so to your point of the subsidy of the common area and all of that, right? There's a portion of the cart fees that gets subsidized as part of our paying into the amenity, which is golf, right? So if you were to break down the charges from the cart fees and a portion of it goes to the amenity, I think the issue that's being raised is if you think about the total number of rounds of golf that a single golfer has to pay for in relation to a owner that is a couple, and the two of them, get the benefit of, say their rounds are 103, we have to play 103 rounds to break even, versus they are really only each one are 50 rounds. And there may be, I would propose that, you know, if you give a slight break to the singles that are here, we need to know what the demographic of how many singles do we have in this club, and is there a way that we could set up this cart fee, trail fee, and the least cart fee arrangement that would give the singles a slight break. I brought this up 4 years ago when I got on the board, or 3 years ago when I got on the board, because I do think it's something that we should be considering. And I don't think it's, you know, given that 2 members get to ride in the cart and they get to play, they're paying the same as I as a single am paying, and the 2 of them get the benefit of the same cart fee that I'm paying, and they can play way more rounds of golf than I could ever consider playing. And I just think that there should be some consideration given for the singles.
May I make a suggestion, please? I'd like to suggest that we're not going to resolve this at the board level.
Yes.
That we're not going to resolve this at the board level at this meeting, and that we give the task to the golf committee to ask them to consider ways to address this.
Should
Yeah, I
we-
mean, my point is to
a
raise
question for what, as I talk to the finance committee, we have a practice of charging by the unit, not on every single amenity that we have in this community. Do you want me to say to the finance committee, we need to begin to charge by the person as
No.
opposed to the unit?
Well,
Then you
If I do, and I can do that, then we're going to have some administrative challenges within the community that we're going to have to figure out. You want to just isolate it to just the golf cart situation? Is that the discussion that you'd like the finance committee to have?
yes, I would.
Yes, I
Okay,
think we should consider it.
I will have the conversation with the finance committee and ask them to give their recommendations. We have had, 25 years ago, we had trail fees and we had pay-as-you-go. And after that, we said, let's have cart leasing fees and trail fees and pay-as-you-go. I will say that it will be very difficult for the operations team to administer individualized programs for the use of carts in this community. We can't come up with 931 separate programs. I'm hoping that nobody on this board would advocate for that. Right now, we're talking about singles versus people who may have 2 people in a household who are using the carts. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not talking about singles. I'm just talking about couples where if they're playing at the same time, one spouse gets to use a free Foxfire cart, which number one, loses revenue, and number two, might have been used for somebody else who was going out to play golf. That might turn somebody back in terms of their starting time. That's all I'm saying.
I would dispute the fact that they're getting a free cart. They're
not paying for it.
$1,700 or $1,700 in advance, for this program. And yes, if they pass the threshold for the number of rounds, I guess you could say it's free. But by and large, they are paying, and it's a benefit to the club to get all this money up front. Because
no, I understand that. You have a $1,700 fee.
Don't play for 4 months, etc., but they've paid the cart fee. So it's a voluntary program. You make a decision. This is the program that's offered. Does it work to my advantage or doesn't it? If it doesn't, you don't sign up for the program. If it does, you do. But as Roger says, for us to get involved in the social aspects of this, who's a double, who's a single, how many rounds have they played combined and separately, and does the spouse play golf or whatever? It's a bookkeeping issue that we can't possibly solve, and we don't want to. As Roger said, in a bundled community like this, things are divvied up on a unit basis, not on a per person basis. And this is just, part of that philosophy. That's what a bundled community is.
Okay, let's move on.
Yeah, I think anyway, I guess we've beaten it to death enough right now.
Okay, you want to go on with your list there, John?
I do. Pretty much the other things we've already covered, like the governing dock situation, the survey question. I am concerned about the golf course condition, where in terms of maintenance and upkeep, I find a lot of weeds, a lot of things that really need to be, I think, taken care of. And I'll use an example of, say, the steps going up to the tees on Silver 5, where you have weeds growing in between the bricks, et cetera, or Silver 9, where you have that brick area, looks like a memorial area. You had a lot of weeds growing in there. I would like to see that our maintenance crews are keeping up with making the golf course look good. And right now I see a lot of work that needs to be done.
I think Donald just addressed that when he said that we're not hiring on the.
Yeah, but this is regular maintenance.
Yeah.
Well, they're doing the other stuff too.
Let Donald answer.
Yeah, so with regard to the entryways, I met with Jeremy and Gavin and Brian the other day, and I said we had a conversation about all the different projects and the other things that they're being asked to do. And what I said to them is that the highest priority right now on the golf course has to be other than the golf course condition itself, the greens, the tees, et cetera, has to be the entryways. So those things will be addressed. But as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the things, because we've been pulling staff to do golf course renovations and all that other, we pulled staff for the last 3 months to do all this work, and it just keeps piling up. But the entryways, they're going to be addressed, and those things will all be taken care of for sure.
No, I wasn't talking the entryways. I was talking on the actual course.
You said
Yeah.
you said the stairs. You said the stairs and the bricks. That's the entryway.
Right, going to the tee. Okay,
Yeah.
well, you call it
Yeah.
entryway.
Entryway to the T. I'm sorry. The entryway
Entry to the tee. I thought you were talking entry to the,
No,
Yeah.
entry to the T. I'm sorry. Entry to
okay.
So Donald, is there a plan to get some of the workers out there to clean up the palmettos and the weeds that are growing all over the place? I mean, I understand that we've got to prioritize what they're doing and they've been redirected, but on days like where we've had this flood out, rain out for days and there was no golf being played, I would assume that some of these workers could have been out there pulling those weeds and cleaning up those palmettos.
Yeah. So to answer that question, Jerry, on those palmettos, most of the palmettos with the rain that we've just had, they couldn't get to the palmettos. But in any case, beyond that, we the vines are going to be continue to be pulled by our staff. But in addition to that, we're going to try a new herbicide that's good that you can use on native plants like palmettos, to where it will actually kill some of the vines that grow. So we are going to test that, and if that does work, that's going to make a huge difference now and in the future. But yes, the vines are on the to-do list for sure.
Okay.
Now, Donald, you had briefly mentioned, I think in the previous last month's meeting about Blue 5 Bridge. Now,
Yes.
is that something, I think you mentioned you might have gotten some numbers from somebody on that, and at what point are we looking that needs to be replaced like Red 9?
Yes. Well, I think that if we're going to replace it, if we do the golf course renovation work next year, then I would definitely include that at that time. For sure.
Okay, all
I
right.
did have it power washed and sealed last week. All the bridges and bulkheads power washed and sealed, and they did fix some of the boards. But the 5 Blue, those boards, the main boards underneath, those all do have to be replaced, just like the ones on 9 Red. They're not as critical as 9 Red was at this point last year.
Okay. Yeah, I've noticed a lot of grass and weeds growing in the bridge.
Yes, yeah,
So-
yeah,
So as long as it doesn't collapse, I guess we're good for another year.
right.
And my last actually group of questions is, and this would be directed to Donald, is how we're doing with a survey that was done for the cart barn, and essentially developing from there, also developing a master list of anything that we would want to be done within the community that we would take to the county to sit down with them at essentially a pre-app meeting or whatever, and cover all our bases and go from there. How's that coming in terms of the survey and looking to develop something for the county?
So survey, the last email that they had sent me was they had to make they felt like they had to make one more site visit. So I believe that I'll have the survey in hand, and I'll email today. I believe I'll have the survey, or at least a preliminary survey of this site by the end of next week. That's kind of the timeline we had. With regard to the site plan and the possible PUDA, I think that some of that's going to be contingent upon whether or not the actual master plan is accepted as the plan forward. Because if the plan that's there, that was presented the other day, if that's accepted as a plan forward, then there are portions that when we did a PUDA that we may end up leaving out. So I think that PUDA conversation is going to be subsequent to whether or not the overall master facility plan is approved. And then from there, we can do the PUDA. And then with regard to the pre-app meeting, as I mentioned the other day, that can be set up so that we can at least go in and meet with the reviewers to see if there are any issues beyond what we would plan with regard to the way the campus is set up for the future.
So in other words, when you went into that meeting, you would have in hand the situations like the Davis wall, the radio wall, the potential use of that wooded area next to the radio entry, things like that, that potentially we would use down the road, but you get them confirmed now through this committee meeting.
Yeah, and so what we would do is, so the pre-app meeting, what we probably would end up doing actually, we'd treat the pre-app meeting differently. We would focus, with the pre-app meeting, we would focus on what we want to do in the immediate area. With regard to a PUDA, I believe what we can do is go and meet just with one of their reviewers, one of the directors, on schedule a separate meeting. And that's what we had done originally a few years back when we looked at, Foxtail Court and a couple of the other areas when we talked about a PUD amendment. So we can keep the items separate, go to the pre-app meeting for all the planning as far as the buildings and what's in this immediate area. But with regard to the PUDA, I think we'll be able to set up a separate meeting that won't cost us additional money at this point in time, and say, these are the things we'd like to do. What's our best road forward? And I'll give you a couple of quick examples like you just mentioned. Davis Boulevard, I believe can be raised through an insubstantial change of the PUD. I think that just requires a
PUDI.
Yeah, PUDI. There was a section in the county code where a non-conforming use, if something is labeled as a non-conforming use but has been used for that specific use for so many years, that you can go through a PDI for that as well. So in this case, I'm talking about the parking lot across the street from the clubhouse, that we may be able to make changes to that parking lot, even though it's not in the PUD as a parking lot. It's still listed as single family residential. With regard to the corner lot on Kingsway and Radio Road, that's definitely a PUDA issue because it's got to deal with zoning. So
Right.
We're more than likely going to be better off just to lump everything into a PUDA rather than going through the PDI process. But those are probably the three key areas: the back of the driving range. So we can set that up really probably any time. Just got to continue to make sure we have the right list and we all agree on that list.
Sounds good.
Okay, anything else, John?
That ends it.
Okay, wonderful. Anybody else have anything they want to contribute at this point? Any members who wish to exercise the right to speak? Apparently none, so our next meeting is Friday, October 16th at 8:30 a.m. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
I think we're all eager.
I think we have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Hi.
Bye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.